Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a late night hangout on a Thursday evening. I just got done a little while ago listening to Thomas Sheedy, who is the president. I don't know. Was he the president, CFO, CFIO, EIO? I don't know. But he is at least as I know, the head of Atheist for Liberty, an organization that I actually subscribe to. I actually a member. I was asked at one time to be on the advisory board for it in specific context, but I didn't have time for it. But I appreciated that offer from Thomas. But I am, I am somebody who actually believes in a lot of things that Atheist for Liberty stands for. I try to avoid the political ramifications of the organization. I do find them to be, pretty centrist, like I am. Maybe some could argue they maybe lean a little bit right, but I don't even see that much. I think there's an equal amount of left-leaning, right-leaning on certain topics, and I don't even know what it means to be left and right-winged anymore, except for the radical positions of the far left and far right, which clearly I eschew them and have nothing to do with far radical positions. So I was listening to that space, and Michael Sherlock was in there, and Colin Wright, also known as Swipe Right, who is a pretty well-known biologist around the Twitter sphere, especially on his advocacy for keeping sex and gender coextensively related, that gender is based upon a not a bimodal, but a binary, just not even a distribution, but just a binary set that you have male and female. And so I got done listening to that discussion, and it was basically on, what does atheism need to do? What are some of the mistakes that atheism has made in the past, and what is it going forward, and what does it mean to be an atheist advocate? Because the atheist community, as we all know, has had many what the president of the Atheist Experience once said, clerfuffles, love that term, clerfuffles, that has had a major clerfuffles all the way from atheism plus to wokeism to just fracturing within the atheist community. And one of the things that got brought up in that particular Twitter sphere or Twitter space was that atheism is not, as a movement, is not really about anything relating to atheism any longer. Atheism, as I hold atheism, of course, is the belief that there is no God, or the belief that theism is false. Now, other people use the term to mean not belief, and I'm not going to get into the distinctions, nor is it relevant. We're all non-believers. We are all, it's not relevant to this particular discussion, so I'm not going to do my atheist shtick. But, we're all non-believers. We all agree that we don't accept Christianity. We don't accept Islam. We don't accept religion as far as a deification, that there exists some object out there that instantiates these properties that we seem to think are worthy of a divine being, that we would, or at least call a divine being. And so in that aspect, what does it mean to have atheist activism? And so a few people had noted that they wanted, or at least I know that Thomas Sheedy did, and hopefully he can join us. He said he will after his meeting. We'll see. I gave him the link. But he wants to get back to more of the firebrand atheism, and that was the atheism that was really prevalent many years back with David Silverman, who I got to know pretty well. Me and Dave go way back. Just like Michael Sherlock, we disagree on the best usage of the term atheist, but fundamentally I think that David Silverman and I agree upon a lot of things when it relates to how should atheists have atheist activism, because what is the activism involved for the atheist community? If atheism is based upon the ontology of God, or the ontological existence of God, such that God exists or God does not exist, and really it would be the movement to try to convince people that God doesn't exist. But that clearly isn't what is being done in atheist communities, especially Atheists for Liberty, which I've really politely admonished Thomas and members of Atheists for Liberty. That is one of the problems I see, is that if you're going to have an atheist organization, you should be pushing to the position that there is no God, and that should be your stance, much like the Satanic Temple does, right? The Satanic Temple is out there saying, look, supernaturalism is bunk. There is no God, and at least they make a stand on it. I could get behind that, even though I wouldn't ascribe that particular position. I still would support Atheists for Liberty as a non-believer. And so I think that is one thing that atheist activists could start trying to do, is trying to dissuade certain types of theists at least. I don't think it's advantageous to go around trying to convince people there is no God in general. But I do hold that in some cases it is advantageous, such as young earth creationism, which is heavily predicated in a belief that there's a God. It's fundamental. Matter of fact, creationist scientists have to sign a waiver called a statement of faith that no science could ever come about that shows anything against the earth being 7,000 years old. If any science comes around that does indicate that, the science is wrong, not the interpretation of the Bible. And that is fundamentally incorrect. So I do think that going after religious people that accept certain types of mindsets is productive, like going after young creationism, but not for them personally. Of course not. I have friends that are young creationists. I have mad respect for Dr. Jonathan Sarfati, and we don't agree at all on creationism. But he's very polite to me. He's very respectful to me, and I'm back to him. And I think that's important because they were talking about building bridges. They were talking about, should we, befriend people that disagree with us? And some of them had said, well, no, that, kind of waters down what they're pushing and believing. And I'm like, I don't think so. Look, the reason why, I get along with Sarfati is we agree on other things. I'm not a litmus type test person, right? I don't believe that we should be associating with people based upon people that only agree with us. That would make no sense, right? How would we get the message out when we're not talking to people that disagree with us? And even though, Dr. Sarfati and I do not discuss creationism, we have not for probably a long time. I mean, we go back probably 8 years or more on YouTube, and we kind of got past that. So we don't talk about that particular subject, but we talk about other subjects. And so that's why I think it'd be it's beneficial to reach across the aisle, so to speak, as they had said in the Twitter space. Another thing I noted to Thomas was that I think that a lot of atheists will talk about atheism but not understand the philosophy of atheism, atheology, so to speak. And I think that presents a problem because a lot of them don't even know what they're arguing. They don't know how to articulate a well-defined argument. They don't know how to criticize a well-defined argument. And when a theist comes up, and look, we've all accepted that any proof of the existence of God, as far as a logical proof, we believe is either invalid or unsound or not convincing. It's one of those three. You can accept an argument as valid and sound and still not find it convincing. That is true. But you have to know how to attack the validity of an argument and the premises, and I find a lot of atheists cannot do that properly. They have the most dumbest reasons for not accepting a premise, or worse, rejecting it, saying it's false. Like, if you tell somebody, here's in your logical argument, you haven't proved your premises, I'm not going to take you seriously. That is not a justifiable response to a logical argument. You do not prove premises. They're taken axiomatically. And you need a reason to say, I don't accept that particular premise. And that has to be a justifiable reason. Now, other people argue, well, that's shifting the burden. No, it's not. That's how it's done in logic. If you accept these premises, this is the conclusion if the logical structure is valid. If you find that one of the premises is incorrect, then which one is it and why? Why do you hold it to be false? And by the way, I do see my live chat out there. Hi, guys. I'm not ignoring you. Hi, Awesome Lawsome. If you have any questions, by all means, this is a Twitter space, so if anybody comes in, they're welcome to come up and speak. Right now, I'm just kind of getting my views on it because my hot take after being in that Twitter space, listening to Thomas Sheedy. Somebody wrote on my Twitter feed, they say, making atheism normalized, making it accepted in society, dispelling myths. Well, here's the thing, though. How much more normalized can atheism get? Now, sure, there's pockets in America that have probably regressive thoughts about atheists, and that's really rare, though. If you walk outside and you say, hey, I'm an atheist, most people are going to care. I mean, why would they? And so I think it is pretty normalized. I don't think we should be going for a normalization of atheism any longer. I think that at least the non-belief position, not essentially the belief there is no God, but at least that people that don't believe is far more accepted than it ever been. Matter of fact, everybody knows that I don't believe. I have no issue in my life. In any of my works where they knew that I was a non-believer, and hell, even tended to Satanism in some ways. No one cared. Never been a factor. Ever. How much more normalized can we get? So I don't think normalization of atheism is really something that we should have as a mission statement as far as atheist activism. But then again, what is atheist activism at that point? What are we going for? TomTom34B, hey, my friend, he says, given the news from the Mannheim, Germany, and possible landslide shift in the next elections, maybe atheist activism should focus on political... my word is covered up. Island. It's covered up because I have a heart there. On political islands, is that what it says? Hello, folks. He says, hello. Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that atheism activism is a political position. I do think it's entrenched and inexplicably tied to political parties. Absolutely. It's a political organization, AFL. Now, does this mean that atheism is political? No. But when we're talking about activism, what is it that we're talking about? We're talking about political activism, is what it is. It's exactly what it is. It's political activism. And there's nothing wrong with political activism. You're trying to get your views that you think are better than some other views. And what any kind of activism is boils down to this. What is more beneficial to society? This is the whole dichotomy between protheism and anti-theism. The pro-theist will argue that religion and or the belief in God has at least a net axiological value to society, while a anti-theist would argue has a net loss, at least a substantive net loss. And so when we're talking about atheist activism, we're not like a bunch of people going around, hey, let's convince you there is no God, although I think that should be a part of it. It is, we have a particular position that stands against the encroachment of religion into society as far as schools and legislation, separation of church and state. That's really what atheism in the activist form is about. Separation of church and state, that we should not, as non-believers, be forced to accept certain things in society that have become predicated upon Christianity. And I'm all for that. I believe in a strong separation of church and state, but I'm also a strong believer in religious freedom. If you as an individual wish to be a Christian, then I am all for that, and I think that if it makes your life better, I have no issue with it whatsoever. Go with God, as so they speak. And I think that should be the position that atheists generally talk about when they talk about their views on Christianity. There was a doctor a long time ago. His name, I don't think he's alive anymore. Yeah, I don't think he's alive. But Dr. Rowe came up with the term friendly atheist, and not like Hammett meant it. Friendly atheist meant that you were friendly as far as religion existing in society, that you were okay with people being religious. And so, I would ascribe to that, right? Somebody else mentioned in the Twitter space that if they had a button and could remove all religion at once, would they do it? And they wouldn't. And I agree with them. I don't think that'd be beneficial. I think for religion to dissipate on its own organically is just fine, but it cannot be forced, nor should it be forced. We don't have that right to take that away from other people, that belief. We do have the right to take it away legislatively, that they do things like, let's have prayers or benedictions before some kind of congressional meeting or state executive meetings of businesses or anything else, that the Satanists can say, hey, look, well, we want to have a benediction too, and hail Satan. Ave Satanas. And I think that's absolutely right. If Christians can have a benediction before a congressional setting or some kind of legislative meeting, then so can another religion. And, sorry to say it, but Satanism is a religion. I'm not even sorry to say it. I think it's absolutely hysterical that the Satanic Temple has done everything that Christians could do by the same laws. I think that is exactly what activism is. I think the Satanic Temple is the epitome of atheist activism. And they do so by using the same legal loopholes that Christians use. And do so in a little bit of mocking way. I get that. Do I think that AFL should engage in mockery? No, not really. I think that would kind of detract. But I understand it sometimes. I'm not saying that we should mock Christians. That's not what I'm saying at all. So before somebody clip channels me, I do not advocate at all mocking of Christians. But of course, there are some beliefs that are deserving of mockery. Candace Owens just recently, the other day, yesterday, I think it was, tweeted out that as she gets older, she no longer thinks it makes sense that a big asteroid hit the Earth 65 million years ago and killed all the dinosaurs. Wow, that's just a reality denialism at that point, right? That's mockery. I mock that. Anybody who says, I mean, I remember back in the, was it 70s, early 80s, that there was a big push that Satan had put dinosaur bones into the earth to confuse people and lead them away from God. Yeah, that's deserving of mockery. That's not fundamental Christianity. That's fringe. That's cultish type nonsense. So that is worthy of mockery. And if some people argue, well, the belief that Jesus rose from the dead, that's pretty out there too. Okay, I get that, but that's taken as a very somber, heartfelt conviction by people. And when people actually have a heartfelt conviction, I don't think mockery is the way to go, right? But saying that dinosaurs do not exist is not a heartfelt conviction. That's just anti-science. Massive, massive difference there. See, Christopher Kenyan Atheist. Hey, bud. Long time no see. By the way, I am on Twitter right now, guys. It is peaked. Somebody peaked. I can't speak. I'm only on my second cup of coffee. It is pinned to the top if you want to join. But he says, there are pockets in Canada, too. The Mennonite Bible Belt is strong here in the prairies. I'm aware of that. There are Mennonite Bible belts down here in the South. We have, obviously, the Bible Belt, which are fundamentalist. We have strong Baptist. And I am very much against religious fundamentalism. I find that it leads to very, very dangerous things to society. You have people out there like Pastor, what is his name? Ken Hovind and Pastor, see how much I care about them? Anderson, who advocate, that the government comes in and executes people for their sexual orientation. That's absolutely absurd. That's absolutely absurd. Not only is that absurd, it's anti-human. It's sick. It's disturbing. These are mentally unwell people that advocate the death penalty for who you love. I stand pro LGBTQ on that. Absolutely. I advocate 100% that gay people and lesbians should absolutely be able to have the right to live and love as they want. I am all for it. Don't have a problem with it whatsoever. Just like I will not force a gay person to be straight. They can't force me to be gay. We live our lives. We go out. That's it. That's equality. That's just treating people like people. I couldn't care what your sexuality is. It's not a matter of a thing to me. I don't really care whether you're gay or straight. Sure, it might affect. Hey, if you want to go to a gay bar, and I'll be okay, cool. Let's go to a gay bar, right? I don't care. I've been invited to go to a gay bar several times, just a couple weeks ago. That was a little long ago. I just wasn't feeling up to it. But for the most part, why would somebody care that I'm straight? Do I go in my live chat going, hey, I'm straight. No. I understand that gay people have been historically in the minority and vilified, absolutely, and they have a right to be pride, that they're gay. I just think it's a little bit much nowadays, and even many other, right? One sec here, guys. One sec. One second. All right. And then somebody else had said, let me find it here. They had suggested for atheist activism. Where's it at here? Man. I don't like the way Twitter works sometimes. For some reason, my scrolling isn't working now. Anyways, somebody else gave me a suggestion too, and I don't know where it's at. My scrolling is not working on my Twitter for some reason. My scroll bar. That's just weird. Let me try a different browser. Hang on one sec. Does that? Oh yeah, it works on Opera, but on. Okay, that's weird. Let's see here. Somebody else had said. I want to find this. Nope, can't find it. Oh well, maybe whoever it was will come in and we'll find this later because I didn't want to ignore them. They were giving a helpful suggestion what they think atheist activism should be about. Oh, here it is. Heaven's Fulfillment. He said, "Hey, Justin, come on up. By the way, you can come up, Justin. I would love to have you. Let me make sure. Invite. There we go. Pop back out. All right. Oh, now I lost my... Uh-oh. Now I lost my thing on my OBS here, guys. 1 second. I will fix this. Why is that not finding it? Here we go. There we go. Now it's back. Come on up, Justin. You were in the stream there, so you kind of know what was going on. Let's see what else we got here. Canadian atheist Stephen Anderson. Yeah, that's his name. John Camacho. So is there still a stigma of atheists not being trusted as leaders? I don't think so. I mean, I think that maybe in the 50s and 60s, especially when there was a lot of, I don't want to say Christian nationalism because that's not what it was, but, a lot of the God and country, American Pie, God, kind of stuff, especially coming out of World War II. It was very patriotic, and a lot of the patriotism was intricately involved in promoting, a foundational belief in God, I think, right? But I don't think so at all. We have a lot of atheist leaders. Nobody seems to care. I mean, I don't know anybody that says, oh, he's an atheist, therefore he can't be trusted. He's an atheist. He shouldn't be in a position of leadership. In my 54 years on earth, I have never in my life once recall anybody ever making that argument about anyone, except for fundamental Christians, obviously. Maybe they might, right? But I mean, to me, in my real life or in general, no, I never heard that. Have you? Baron Von Brass, you better get in here, Baron. I haven't talked to you in ages, dude. Atheist Activism says should work on the work of non-stamp collectors. Yes. Start doing non-stamp collecting, because we all know how useful that is, right? We all know how beneficial. And as Barron knows, that I think the old non-stamp collecting analogy is absolutely stupid. It makes no sense. Or atheism is like the channel off. It's stupid. Stop using it, guys. It makes atheists and other non-believers like myself look dumb, and I don't like that. I can make myself look stupid. I don't need your help, so to speak. Barron says it also could help marginalized community of Pastafarians. Sure. But again, Pastafarians, I at least understand their brand of satire. I appreciate it, right? I'm not myself a Pastafarian, but I definitely understand the point that they're trying to make through legit mockery. But it should be taken as, harmless. I don't think Pastafarians are out there trying to make any kind of serious argument, obviously. It's just to point out that, look, they can form a religion just like anybody else can with similar, ideas that there's some metaphysical being out there that created everything, and they're just going to call that the flying spaghetti monster, right? So, Joey says, I would like to talk on Twitter, but have no mic. Well, go get one. They're cheap. Go get a mic. Call on a phone. You can do that too on Twitter. But I do see you listening, Joey. So welcome, Justin. Are you going to come up, man? Do I got to drag you up here, or is this not working? Because I have some issues with Twitter. I don't know, Twitter Space. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. Like right now, I have no idea what's going on with my my Opera and my Google Chrome here. I'm not. It's not working the way it should. Shoot! And I just closed that out. Didn't mean to. I just exited from my own thing, trying to fix this. Maybe I should just leave it alone. I just literally exited out of my own thing there. Let me reconnect. All right. Sorry about that. And of course, now that it disappeared from my OBS too. Man, I am just batting 1,000 today, man. So we'll get back on topic here in a second. Let me just get back here. No, that's not it. No, that's my chat. There we go. Oh, where the hell did I get my other chat from? I got multiple chats on here. Let's see here. Let me get rid of my other chat here. It's messing up my stuff. Yeah, you know what? We'll use that chat. Then we'll move the image over here. There we go. That makes it a little more cleaner. And then I can take that and turn that on. There we go. Now we're back. All right. Ah, man, people don't know the struggle is real trying to do this stuff when you got multiple things going on. OBS, Twitter, YouTube. But Justin, you coming up? Anyways, so again, Joyce says, I don't know anything about atheist activism. It is a thing. Yeah, no, there absolutely is a thing. I mean, but what does it really mean, right? I mean, some people in the space were kind of relating it to secular humanism, which I do understand has a massive correlation there. I do agree somewhat with the secular humanist approach, maybe not necessarily the full philosophy of it, but I do understand that the secular humanist at least attempts to say, look, in society, how do we do things that normally churches were kind of doing in the past, right? Churches were before were kind of known to help the needy, feed the homeless, clothe the naked, that kind of stuff, right? And so the secular humanist kind of says that, hey, look, anything a church can do, we can do as well, as just secular humanism. We don't need religion to tell us to go out and feed the hungry, right? Or clothe the clothless, just recently, I went out and I bought some food for somebody that I've known for about a year that is homeless. They've always been okay, cool. They've never stolen anything. And so I basically, well, I've never caught them stealing, but no, I mean, they never have. I've seen them pay for things, and they were going through garbage, and I'm like, I can't in good conscience deal with this. And so, I bought them Coke, a big thing of water, cheeseburger, and some other food and some ice cream. And I'm like, look, it's hot out here. It is really hot here. And I just to see somebody in that condition just tore me apart, because this is not like one of the homeless people that goes around causing crime or, destroying buildings. Or we just had recently some businesses around here shutter up and close down because of the theft. And so I think those kind of people, we absolutely should help. But we don't need a religion to do that. I don't need Jesus to tell me that helping somebody who is going through, literally going through garbage to find drinks and food, we need some help, right? I think that as a moral agent, we should just recognize that on our own accord. And this is something that was also brought up in the Twitter space. Matter of fact, Colin Wright had posted something about this on his Twitter about morality. What is the moral implications of being atheist and things of that nature? And he kind of said maybe that there is no kind of relationship between morality and atheism, and I kind of disagree if that's what he meant. The reason being is if you're going to do atheist activism, right? While the core philosophy of atheism being that there is no God is significant, you're going to have to deal with how you account for morality by a non-deistic way. Because a theist says, hey, look, we can account for morality this way. Can they? I don't think so. I think it's just, them saying they can. I think that there's a lot of problems grounding, morality with some kind of deity. But that's neither here nor there. But the theist is out there saying this. The theist is going, hey, look, we have morality. We can show you by God's grace in the Old Testament and 613 mitzvahs and that you shouldn't eat shellfish or whatever. I don't know how that relates to morality, but it does because it's cultural morality and also historical morality. But it is relativism. It's cultural relativism at its finest, that back then they shouldn't eat shellfish, but shellfish are fine now. That's relativism, which I don't subscribe to, by the way. But it's up to the atheists then to say, look, we also can account for morality. And they do, I think, very effectively. But to be an atheist activist, you're going to probably have to learn a little bit about moral theory when those kinds of things come up. If you want to show the theist that we don't need theism or religion to be moral people. Tangelo says, if naturalism is true, there are no oughts to be's. That's absolutely false. Again, you can get into is ought distinctions, but there are moral oughts. You can be an atheist and have a moral ought. That's absolutely, there's moral absolutism, there's, moral objectivism, but there are moral oughts to be had. This is just normative even. He says there's no you should this or that. If naturalism is true, everything goes. No, that's absolutely false. That's based upon Dostoevsky's, the brothers Kasparov, if I'm pronouncing that right. But it is Russian's hard. Dostoevsky. It's basically, he wanted to give back his ticket to heaven, basically, because he argued if there is no God, anything goes. That's absolutely false. In fact, it actually, I think, goes against theism. To say that if naturalism is true, as everything goes, violates core moral principles that we have as members of the human race. Did my mic stop in the? Joey, can you still hear me in the Twitter thing? It stopped moving, so I wasn't sure if you can still hear me in that. Justin says trying to speak, couldn't join on X, was just pending. Let me try to invite you again. But every time I invite somebody, it screws up my stuff here. Can you click the... man. Why is this not working, guys? Why is I cannot invite him up here? I see. I got this. Wait a sec. Now try it, Justin. And while you do that, I have to refix this again because it's stupid OBS. But that worked to help you come up, Justin. You see me, man? I see you waving, but it's not working. Kamazarov brothers. Yeah, I don't speak French. Christopher says, absolute BS from Tangelo as usual. Yeah, he's kind of famous for that. The silence, man, come on up too. Again, you should be able to just come right up. I don't understand why it's not working. I have it set for that. And Tangelo says, yes, we can because God says this and that is right and that is not. So what? First, you have to assume God is a moral agent. That is all good. That's an assumption. Second of all, just because he says something, why does that make it so? What obligation does in fact, Eric? Oh man, I'm so bad at names. But the philosopher that argues that psychopaths have no moral duty to God because they don't even know right from wrong. So if they have no duty from right from wrong, and God says this, what is their moral obligation? Because they don't understand what God's saying. And just because God says something, and by the way, even in divine command theory, it's not what makes good God saying something, it's the action of you following it that makes it good. That's an act-based moral theory, which is based upon ethical subjectivism, which, again, goes against what theists generally argue. This is why you only see, generally, William Lane Craig and Frank Turek and those guys are people out there arguing moral theory from theism, because when you get somebody like Tangelo arguing moral theory to somebody like let's say Secular Outpost, like who is it that he always goes against on Twitter? Daniel. You see Secular Outpost just annihilate him. Daniel gets annihilated in moral theory because they start from a position and they have to follow from that position, and anything else must be wrong. They don't have the ability to change from one moral theory to another. I do. I can appeal to virtue ethics. I can appeal to deontology. I can appeal to deontic models or alic models or any kind of model I want. It doesn't matter. But that's my moral framework. And if I appeal to meta ethics as objective morality and say that there are objective morals out there, I can do that. That doesn't make it relative at all. That's how you build a strong moral character. You don't do that by saying, God said this, therefore I have to listen. That doesn't build you moral character. That's just subjugation. That is you literally just saying, hey, look, this being says it's good, therefore I have to obey it. And you assume that being is fully good, even though that being has done some very morally questionable things in the Old Testament. It's based on a lot of assumptions. A lot of assumptions. So even if that God is fully morally good, what ontologically makes it such that you have the onus to obey that? There's an entailment there that Christians seem to miss. And when you have somebody that is a psychopath, as Eric, his last name starts with a W, it escapes me. I follow him on Twitter, and he wrote a paper on that very thing. If psychopaths, cannot understand what God means, how are they held accountable? And you could have what's called a non-natural, non-normative theory of ethics. Thomas, I see you there. Can you come up? Or I'm having problems with people coming up right now for some reason. I'm going to try to fix that right here and now. I have all this request, and I've approved them all. So is it working? Because I don't know what else to do. I've had this problem before. I approved the request.
I think I'm in.
Thank you. Hi, Thomas.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. Sorry
Oh
for
my
being
God, it works now.
Yeah, I don't.
It finally works.
I am sucky at these, and I do apologize. But let me give Thomas a quick rundown, real quick, because as he knows, I was listening in to that discussion, and I just kind of wanted to do some follow-ups on it. Oh, you missed the good parts already, Thomas. But welcome.
Yeah, sorry. I was listening to a few minutes so like you're live on YouTube too. So like,
correct.
I was rewinding past the live parts to listen to the first few minutes. I might have a sore throat now, and so I didn't even know if I was going to join in or not. But I'm gonna try my best. I took some cold medicine, and hopefully that helps. And maybe it's just me overworking, because I was sick like 2 weeks ago, and you would think, oh well, I wouldn't get sick again this quickly. So, but anyways, not to digress. Thank you for having me.
That's because you do a lot for AFL, right?
Yeah, to say the least.
So you got back from some travels too, right?
Oh yeah, I did. DC and a bunch of other places. So catching up with a lot of things, and then this is just a bad time because there's so many birthdays and holidays around this time for me too. So
gotcha.
It's yeah.
So well, to say okay, so saving voice. Let's get down to the nitty gritty here, because I really do want to talk about atheist activism, because that's what the crux of the Twitter space that you have is, what does it mean to have atheist activism? And my point was early, before you even started listening, was basically, what is it that atheists are trying to convey? What is the message that they're trying to say to society? Because it isn't about pushing the belief there is no God, and we're not going to get into a discussion whether atheism is. It's irrelevant. We're all non-believers. We all have the same position that we do not accept God beliefs. Right? That's foundational. I grant that. And so, for atheist activism, we're not going out there pounding, hey, there is no God, or, you shouldn't be a non-theist. What I think atheist activism as a political position is the separation of church and state. I think that is the fundamental core of atheist activism. And I think it's the fundamental core that harmful ideas should be fought against, not religion of itself, because a religion as a core belief for somebody, Christianity as the belief that there is no God, is pretty innocuous. If somebody wants to believe that, that's fine. But when there's a belief like young earth creationism, when there's a belief that, is stream like flat earth, is predicated on Christianity, when there's harmful ideas, such as queer theory, I think is a very harmful idea. Those things, I think, atheist activism should involve themselves in, even though it's not really related to atheism. It is the fact that you're relating it to a mindset that we don't believe we don't believe in God. Therefore, we're not going to be held by laws and policies that are predicated on a position of God existing. That, I think, should be really what atheist activism should be about. What do you think about that, Thomas?
So yeah, personally, I want to say again, thanks for having me on. I wish I could have made it even earlier, and I definitely would love to come on to more of the X spaces, more of the streams that you do. Most definitely, and for the long haul. I think you're mostly correct. I think with Atheists for Liberty, we like to prioritize things more than others. So I can definitely concur with you that a theocrat pushing young Earth creationism or trying to violate the separation between church and state in the United States, focusing our efforts and our energies on making sure that those forces don't succeed, it is more of a higher priority than just talking about God belief or going after people for simply being religious. Do I think that it's better that people are not religious than religious? Sure. I think that just as a skeptic, I think it's important for us to believe in things that are true as much as humanly possible. So, do I think it's better that people are atheists than non-atheists, or that people be non-religious more than religious? Sure, I do. But caring about defending a society where we can be free to believe or not believe, that is more important. But I think that there are many different fights that can be done at once. Now, what makes Atheists for Liberty unique as comparison to other atheist think tanks, other atheist organizations in the United States, even some around the world, is that one thing strategically we want to do is engage in certain fights and certain battles that other atheist groups are not fighting in. It's something I've always made a priority. So when we started out and launched in 2020, politically speaking, even though we're not strictly a right-wing organization, I wanted to go to the political right of the United States, such as CPAC, Freedom Fest, LibertyCon, and other spaces right there, and say, well, if we're normalizing secularism and atheism in the American politic, we need to do that across the board, not just on the political left, but the political right, especially if we are trying to make the argument that politics should be based on reason and not religion. So we went to CPAC. We defended this one guy's rights as an atheist in 2021 during the COVID pandemic when he was trying to get a philosophical exemption in the state of Minnesota as an atheist, which is allowed, but he was being discriminated against at the time because he was an atheist. We sent a letter. Was able to get this guy's job kept. No other atheist organization would focus on that. We normalized this idea through this guy's company that he's a good person that should be entitled to the same rights as an employee under secular laws in the state of Minnesota. Cool. That's another thing that we're doing. So I think the answer really is subjective, right? I think there are a lot of different atheist groups and atheists that would constitute atheist activism differently. But the way I conducted that space was through a lens of what a lot of atheist groups are currently not doing. So a lot of the fiery, passionate atheist activism, for instance, that got Atheist Notice on the news, that was able to get the debate and dialogue started around atheism, that kind of died down because the social justice people became way, way too sensitive to defending ideas, even horrible ideas, as long as it plays into their ideology. So they'll be firebrands about their social justice politics, but then when it comes to atheism and religion and actually pushing non-belief, they actually neutered themselves. So a great example, I'll shut up after this. A great example was in preparation for the 2016 Reason Rally. I was on a youth committee for Americans United for Separation Between Church and State. This was a few years ago. And there was somebody who was asking, a friend of ours who was a Hindu, who was asking, is it going to be like the first Reason Rally where it's going to be a lot of atheist advocacy? And I remember one of the employees of an organization that was in a call with us at the time said, "Oh, no, we're not going to be doing that anymore. We're really going to be focusing on being inclusive and social justice minded." At the time, I was cowardly, but I also wanted to just maintain my career in the movement in 2015, 2016. So I was very quiet about my real views of things. But that's one of the reasons why I had this space too. I want to bring Atheists for Liberty into realms of atheist advocacy that either used to exist and don't exist anymore, or didn't exist in the first place. And that's why I wanted to have that discussion and bring up different strategies and ideas as to where we could go.
Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page, actually. I do agree with you. Like, look, if I had my way to have a completely non-religious society, I would probably advocate for that. But I am much more, to me, it's much more important to have the freedom of religion.
Yep.
Than
Absolutely.
and that's why I respect you, man. Straight up, man. The first time I ever talked to you, I was like, damn, this dude. And I know you get I know because you're no offense, you're younger, you're a young dude, And so, a lot of people may hold that against you, but you're one of the smartest freaking people I know when it comes to these topics. I know you've been, the president of, students alliances and things of that nature. This is your wheelhouse. This is something you've lived your life, doing probably from a very, early time, whether it be college or high school. And I have the massive amount of respect for you on that. That you agree with me and other people that liberty is really the foundation of what we should have in America, and freedom of religion is absolutely a civil liberty. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, and like you said, and I like the fact that you talked about CPAC and you went over to the right a little bit, because let me ask you this: the left, when it came full throttle, when it produced this woke ideology that encroached within atheism, and it became atheism plus. You were there, I was there. I know Justin was there, and I think the Sinosaurus man was probably there. Yeah. So we were there. We lived this just as much as you remember it as well. And so, did you think to yourself, look, the left has left what activism is about. They're now pushing queer theory and other theories that I think everybody here agrees is very harmful to society. Do you think that that's why you kind of said, let's try a little bit to the right, because you have to get into somewhere, right? Being a centrist is a shitty position for us. Let's put it this way. It really is difficult. Is that what your mindset was?
For me, I'll answer quickly, and then Justin give his own answer. It was a small reason for us. So I very much want to see atheism normalized, not only on the right, but on the left as well. I will cite the movement, at least when it was healthier in the past, did a lot of great things to get atheism normalized in the Democratic Party. On the left, there's a Congressional Free Thought Caucus that exists in the House of Representatives due to a once healthy movement that established the infrastructure to make that happen. So you'll have representatives like Jamie Raskin and other Congress people from around the United States openly identify, at least as, I don't know if any of them have used the word atheist with the exception of the late Pete Stark, but you'll have them saying they're non-religious. You'll have them saying secular humanist. You'll have some of them saying agnostic. We all know that they're in that camp. They're in that non-belief camp. So that's great. Mission accomplished for 20 years of Woody Kaplan setting that up. Now let's complete the puzzle. The puzzle is 50% complete. Let's complete the rest of the puzzle. And yeah, when it comes to showing right-leaning people back in 2019, 2020, how wokeism engulfed atheism, it was a great way for us to normalize and say, like, hey, we face this exact problem too that you guys are facing for political reasons, and we care about Western civilization as well. We just don't believe in this God stuff. And when we were at CPAC, we even found a lot of atheists that were there too. Mm-hmm. So it was multifaceted. And that's kind of the aim that I try to go towards whenever we pick a program to do or a niche to fill. How can this in a multifaceted way help us accomplish our mission?
Yeah, real quick, and then we get Justin in here. It's funny because I was just telling my audience on YouTube that in my personal life, I have never seen anybody not get a position because they're atheist. You said you just settled something that was exactly that very thing to normalize atheism, and I said, look, I don't think we even need to normalize atheism any longer. I think it's there. You may disagree because you lived, experienced that there was somebody who was atheist that had a problem, but I think it's very rare. I think that we're pretty close to normalizing atheism. If I tell somebody I'm atheist, nobody seems to care. Or if I tell somebody I'm agnostic, nobody seems to care, because I'm obviously technically not an atheist. But if I did, nobody would care. I tell people, I have affinity toward the Satanic Temple. Nobody cared. None of my coworkers ever cared about that. Nobody. So
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anywhere near what it used to be in the 50s. As I was telling people that, look, when we're getting out of the World War II, there was a lot of patriotism, a lot of pro-America, a lot of baseball, apple pie, and God kind of stuff, right? And so
I think the majority of people, and I just want to chime in for a second because I want to let Justin speak too. I'm sorry, Justin. I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah, no good. No,
I think we have definitely made a lot of progress, right? I think when you go to most Americans, most of your neighbors, most of your friends and family members, due to the efforts of our activism within the last 20, 30, 35 years, most Americans will say, okay, you're an atheist, you're non-religious, you're agnostic, whatever. Who cares? Cool. My brother is, my sister is, my mom is, well, whatever. What I was complaining about in that space, and anybody here can check my profile or the Atheists for Liberty profile on X and find the recording of the 2-hour conversation. The issues that we're facing now when it comes to this theocratic apologism against atheism, I think it's because we've been so successful. We are on the epochs of winning the war, and so you're having our opposition put up a lot of these very, very big battles that are definitely going to stifle us for a while and put a thorn in our progress, even though at the end of the day, we will see victory.
I agree. All right, Justin.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me on. We had a little bit of technical difficulties earlier, but I'm good now.
Yeah, that's nothing unusual with me.
Yeah, I got involved in the atheist community in the early 2010s as there was a philosophy group on campus that had a discussion about atheism. And I had identified as religious. I went through CCD, confirmation, all, going to church on Sundays, and I decided, okay, well, hey, what are they talking about? Like, what are the reasons they're giving saying that religion is false? So after investigating the issue, having a lot of discussions on campus, I got involved with a local group that was called the NEPA Free Thought Society in Northeastern Pennsylvania. And my activism was, yeah, church state separation issues. We had our monthly meetings that would just discuss and have community, but there were also various things going on in the community. I tried to advertise on the side of a bus and faced a lot of resistance and was told no about that and won a court battle. Supported by the ACLU at the time, in the pre woke ACLU age, I believe. I was involved with that. I was challenging certain things that were going on at council meetings. I tried to advertise with FFRF on public squares and face resistance from the city of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania about that. So I got involved with a lot of the activism. And then unfortunately, I saw the rise of Atheism Plus post Elevator Gate and
that
Rebecca
really was a
Watson
funny thing. Not to interrupt you, but Elevator Gate was a major, major blow to atheism and atheism activism.
Yeah. And at the time, I didn't care about, hey, guys, don't do that. But rather, it was her treatment of people who spoke against her, as Rebecca had spoken at a conference, bringing up the topic and was saying nasty things about a woman who was in attendance. And if you happen to challenge the narrative, ask questions about it, oh, you're parroting misogynistic thought and all this, it was very, very divisive. And calling group leaders grape apologists, to avoid the R word there, just a lot of really, really nasty language from these people saying, oh, I'm about social justice. So they were putting feminism, they were putting social justice, they were putting their pet issues ahead of all the other issues. It's like, wait, aren't we supposed to be about church state separation? Aren't we supposed to be about atheism? Is another thing I was involved in was debates. I was inside of churches. I was inside a Black Baptist church facing hecklers from the audience. It was a good discussion. And afterwards, I had people come up and say, hey, I thought you gave good arguments. I thought you presented well. I haven't really heard these arguments before. So there was the normalizing atheism and getting involved in outreach. And meanwhile, there are people online just pushing their brand of feminism. It's like, is this what we should be doing? Why are we doing this? This is off mission. And I've said before, it would be like if I brought my issues and said that all atheist group need to be vegetarian. I don't think anyone should eat meat. Meat is murder, going on all these rants. Like, I never did that because I understand there's going to be disagreement with the movement or the community, whatever you would like to call it, but you want to stick to the original mission and not go off it.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because during that space that Thomas had, somebody had brought up India, I think was his name, had brought up something about semantic. He called it semantic drift, and that's the term. I at least that's the term I call it. There's something called semantic drift. Peter Boghossian has mentioned something similar. I don't remember the terminology he used. I always call it semantic drift, and that's exactly what it is. But words have a little bit of change of meaning, and that is how mind viruses actually get involved in changing and reshaping society. For example, the term bigot used to mean something, right? The term bigot used to be somebody who had a predisposition of hatred or dislike to a particular person because of something intrinsic about that person, right? If you dislike somebody because of their skin color, that's bigotry. No matter how you slice it, that is bigotry. That is, I hate to say by definition because I'm a descriptivist, but if I had to have a prescriptive definition, that's exactly what bigotry would be. But the gender ideologues come out there and say, look, if you disagree with me, that's now what I'm going to call bigotry. That's semantic creep. That's exactly what's going on, and that's exactly what you saw when you talked about grape apologists and stuff like that. These were terminologies that people were using to shut down the conversation, and now we see the same things coming up with bigot, transphobe, homophobe, and all these invectives and pejoratives because people don't want to have that discussion, or they're incapable of having that discussion, and they feel that if they can't handle that discussion because of probably low EQ, then nobody else should be having those discussions. And so that is exactly what I think that Atheists for Liberty and other atheist organizations need to stand up and say, look, it is about the discussions. It is about the ideologies out there, whether we're for them or against them. Stop being so personal, because I know that Thomas had advocated going back to a firebrand approach like the David Silverman days. And I don't think that's going to work too well in a disrespectful kind of way towards people that we disagree with, right? I understand firebrand to be really out there and promoting activism with some kind of little minimal amount of mockery. I get that. But the new atheist movement, as far as the atheist online, right? They were all about just mockery. That's all it was. Justin, you remember? I mean, the atheist memes were out there were stupid too. It made them look dumb. And I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be in a group of people that look stupid. And that's why, I had all my arguments and all the things that people now hate me for, because I happen to be right about a lot of things. And so they dislike me because I say, look, this is your position. I find your position wrong. I can prove it logically. At least show me that the logic's wrong. And a lot of people don't want to have that discussion, so they just try to shut it down. Do you notice that?
Yeah, Matt Dillahunty's former wife, Beth Presswood, is now on OnlyFans. And if you're to make an argument, I don't think that's a good idea, why are you doing this? Arden Hart, the person that Matt Dillahunty's currently with, had a lot of explicit videos online, jacking it, let's say. Those videos are taken down and some of the links are gone. If you say, like, I don't think this was a great decision. Oh, you're a bigot.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
wait.
And here's the thing. Do what you got to do, right? If somebody wants to have an OnlyFans, I have no problem with Arden having OnlyFans. Couldn't care less. Right? Couldn't care less. But, if you want to say, hey, look, I don't think this is a good idea, then that's not bigotry. You might have some reasons why it could harm a movement or harm what you're going for. I mean, if I started an OnlyFans and I'm like, look, I'm going to start, showing, getting naked in front of the camera. First of all, I don't think I have anybody subscribing besides Thomas. I mean, because, we go back. But I mean, would it help my credibility as far as my logical arguments? No, it'd probably detract from it, because other people are like, no longer would be people talking about the subjects. It'd be like, hey, look, Steve's on OnlyFans. That becomes a topic, and I don't think it'd be beneficial.
Yep. Yeah, and Matt recently had a debate with Andrew Wilson, of all people, who I had issues with. And Matt surely knew he was going to debate Andrew Wilson. You know what Andrew Wilson's positions are. They're all out there. And Andrew Wilson opens the debate, and after his opening statements of like 10 or 15 minutes, Matt Dillahunty's angry, he's storming off the stage. I'm not going to dignify his position. He's a bigot. He's bringing up all this stuff about trans, and that's off topic. And Matt just stormed off the stage.
It wasn't off topic.
Exactly.
If you really look at I know Andrew. Andrew wants to debate me on my paper, right? But he won't tell me what his issues are with it, right? Which is, when Andrew debates somebody, he uses a little bit of sophistry. I think he recognizes this. And so, yeah, I was like, dude, I will debate you on my paper, because any argument you have about my paper, I don't think it's going to be about my paper. It's going to be about something else. But you know what? I'll stick with it, But I don't think that he was that off topic. But like you said, Matt shut down the conversation. Matt didn't want to have that particular aspect of his beliefs challenged. And I think that's where we as non-believers should have everybody challenging us for our positions. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But
you knew the topic would come up in the debate. And like the old atheist movement online that I was part of, it's like, we're willing to have conversations about controversial topics. We should be skeptics. We should have those discussions and not just call people bigots. Now, okay, we might not want to entertain the flat earth or dinosaurs never existed is like the new Candace Owens thing, it seems. But
I mentioned that earlier.
If you're Andrew Wilson, his views on gender ideology. You knew these things were going to come up in discussion. Right. You have a debate with him anyway. And if you think the guy's a bigot, like, okay, you could still have the discussion and then challenge his points.
Right, exactly.
But Matt didn't want to do that. And it's like this crying on YouTube for about 30 minutes where he takes like 10 minutes to even get to a point.
It looked bad.
As usual.
It looked bad, man. And look, I'm no fan of Matt, personally, because, I had personal interactions with him. I think that he is, in many ways, still very religious. Not in a belief in God, but of his own ideologies. I think he took what indoctrination he had as being a Baptist pastor or preacher, whatever he's going to study for, and he took those same mindsets when he became atheist. And I've seen that so many times. With especially new atheists that are just as fervent in their religiosity, but not for a God, but for whatever they hear on some cable access show. And it's
Colin
disturbing.
Wright was bringing this up too in the last discussion about how, some people just really got into the atheist movement back in the day because of its opposition towards Christianity or its opposition towards Islam. Whereas I think you should become a non-believer through your view on the truth claims.
Agreed. With the
And
reason.
and yeah, with reason. And a lot of people just didn't. And so there are great examples of this. A lot of people that just wanted to do anything that happened to be in opposition to Christianity. Number one, a lot of woke people are Christians, but some atheists became woke just because of that. And then not only that, you had, Ayan Hirsi Ali, I think another great example. One could debate if she is an actual Bible believing Christian now or not, but
I
let's
don't
just
think
say,
so. You know her personally, but I don't think like she fundamentally is. I think she's just using it because she's so against Islam.
yeah, exactly. So I think even regardless if she does or not, she doesn't care. She's turning her brain off, and she's going in that direction just because, oh well, it's not Islam, so therefore it must be
Yeah,
good.
but isn't it kind of Machiavellian? The ends justify
Yeah.
the means things.
I think on the most part, I think I guess from a bias perspective, maybe if there were some exceptions that would benefit us and what we're fighting for, but then we could make but we're just arguing that all these other claims with them saying that, is wrong. And it's really annoying, really disturbing. And so there are plenty of people who used to be non-woke, anti-woke, even atheist type people that have been kind of grifting towards this kind of religious Christian apologism. And I made a tweet as well yesterday, which is very true, that, if a religious revival were to ever happen, and I hope one doesn't, but if one does, it's not going to be a religious revival of the Ayan Hirsi Alis or like these what could you call it, classical liberal minded Christian apologists. It's going to be the Christianity of Nick Fuentes.
Oh
If
God,
if
that's
Ion
scary.
is arguing that Christianity in a fervent form needs to exist, right, in order to take on all these other things, why not take it to its fervent form? And we're seeing this happen within parts of Gen Z that are becoming that are Christian, that are turning to Groyperism, that are turning to Fuentes and his ideology, this trad Roman Catholicism for 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 year olds. It's so it's not, we're not going to like be sipping wine at some intellectual dark web party hanging out with Ion or the Winston Marshall or Melissa Chen or maybe Douglas Murray, who I very much love and respect, or whatever, and we're going to just talk about this classical Christianity. Man, the churches are so beautiful. We need this structure to safeguard the West against the no-go zones. No, they're going to these people that are young. They would go to Nick Fuentes. They pay him money, join the Groyper Network, and say, "Christ is King." B word exclamation point. That's the ultimate conclusion of what a traditional Christian revival would really actually look like.
Yeah, but here's the
And
thing.
so,
Here's the thing, Thomas. At least with the Gropers, you know what you get. They're out there about that.
That's why I almost respect our enemies even more, right? Because they actually at least are taking the faith very seriously.
Isn't that bizarre, though, that you have
believe
respect
in
for
the
somebody?
resurrection of Jesus Christ. They believe in the Holy Trinity, right? Meanwhile, you ask Ayan Hirsi Ali. Again, I'm not trying to ad hominem go after her. I have much respect for her. But you ask her, Richard Dawkins asked her, do you actually believe in the resurrection of Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't actually answer the question.
I remember. Yeah, I remember. And here's the thing, like, I want to make it very clear, like, I loathe Nick Fuentes. I did think he's a horrible, horrible human being. I have no respect for the man.
He hates him.
But I have respect for the action of at least putting your views forward, and that there's a huge difference to be had there. Respecting an action is not the same as respecting the person, right? And the silence, you can join in here. You don't need to put your hand up, but that's okay. Is your mic working? Silenced?
Yep, it's working.
Hey, how you doing, my friend?
Hi,
buddy.
Boy,
this is a fun night. This is turning into fun. You know what? I really am so glad that I decided to go blue. I'm just having a lot of enjoyment on Twitter, and these spaces work pretty well with OBS. There's little hiccups, but I gotta tell you, I'm enjoying all these conversations. I'm glad Thomas is having more. I'm having more, and I do want to be a part of more. I just was going to join Thomas's because those guys are smart. But what's up, my friend?
I'm doing great. I just got home from a stressful shift at work, and I was like, Steve's on the X space. I better join and see if it'll glitch again. But it did, and I was able to get in anyway, so that was good.
Well, give us your opinion
I
on things. How is it that, I mean, what things that we've said so far opine away?
Well, I agree with a lot of that's been said. Unfortunately, I'm getting the other side of things where what kind of what you were saying, how if God said it, then it must be true, and we have to stand up with it. Yeah, that's the side of things that I'm getting a lot on X, where there's these Christians that are like, oh, well, if you're not following the Bible correctly, then you're not, dude. Well, okay, so your definition of correctly is everything you've read. What about everything this person has read? Or have they actually stopped and read the Bible? Because I bet 9 times out of 10, these Christians that want to push their beliefs on others, making the same arguments that I see from trans rights activists, they just end up pushing it and pushing it. And I'm like, are you really winning people over to your religion by being as heavy-handed as you are? No, you're making more people go away from your religion, and that's something that I see, like a lot of the atheist and agnostic arguments. They don't do that. They argue their points, they keep it succinct, and they keep it factual. Meanwhile, they're not pushing that belief onto someone. They're saying, well, you're welcome to believe that, but my mind's not changed. And that's a position that can be respected. A position that cannot be respected is the stereotypical Bible thumper who says if you're not following all 10 commandments word for word, then you're going to hell. But we need to save you. That's our job. We need to save you. No, you don't.
Yeah, well, I do think there's a distinct difference between the Christians out there that really, truly believe, that want to help people, as opposed to the Christians out there that think they're better than anybody else, and that anybody who doesn't believe in them, is going to hell. Because, I mean, my position has always been, if you think that a all-powerful, benevolent being will condemn somebody for eternity for a limited time of existence on the earth to suffer, that is not a benevolent being. That is the antithesis of a benevolent being. And some of them, I think, really do, and I hate to say it, but get off on it. They really do want to look down. I've heard it, I've seen it, where they say, I can't wait to look down at, from you at heaven to see you burning in hell. That's a sadist. How else do you describe that particular position?
I describe it as the deadliest sin, because in the Bible itself, it even says that the deadliest sin was pride, because pride is what ultimately cast Lucifer out from heaven.
And he knew the truth, right? Satan had perfect knowledge. I mean, if he rebelled, what chance do we have? A lot of, as I got older, a lot of things in Christianity made less and less sense to me. As I really learned, about critical thinking and read the Bible and I mean, I've read it before, but I didn't read it, if that makes sense, right? And things in there I didn't know existed until my adulthood. But let me ask Thomas real quick, because I know he's kind of limited here. And by the way, I did invite everybody to come up, so feel free, and I'll get to you. But Thomas, I had messaged you that I think that the atheists should get more into philosophy if they want to argue with the theist on these particular positions, especially when it comes to morality. And this is what Colin Wright was talking about, who I have mad respect for. And one of these days, I will join a hangout to talk to at least say hi to the man, because I'm in awe of him. So it's, what is it called? What is it when you're in awe of a star kind of thing?
Maybe hero worship.
Yeah, hero worship. Yeah,
hero worship. Yeah.
Yeah, and so certain people I'm very impressed by, but as he pointed out that why would atheists have to do with moral theory? But I think there is something to be said there. Now, I don't think Atheists for Liberty should get into moral theory at all. But if we're going to be discussing things with theists, then I do think philosophy plays a huge part, especially logic and reason. This is why, Thomas, when you see me push my logical arguments, and I mean my actual formal logical arguments using, classical, sententional, predicate, modal logic, whatever logic I decide to use for the day, there's reasons for that. And the reasons is I want atheists to have foundational premises that they have to build up from. Laws of logic, right? The canonical laws of logic, the foundations of reason. And I want atheists to think logically. When I give them a logical problem and it's super simple and they're telling me I'm wrong, what is I'm thinking about that particular person? What do I think about their ability to reason if they deny basic fundamental concepts? If you were to tell me that for all of X, X does not equal X, I'm not going to take you as a serious interlocutor, right?
Yep.
And so I think that again, I think they may not have to know the specificities of these things, but They need to stop arguing against theists that putting forth a logical argument unless they know how to attack that logical argument.
Yeah, I've seen some debates where atheist debaters, including Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Lawrence Krauss, didn't do well against people like William Lane Craig because I
Correct.
think they didn't have the philosophical background. And one was like Lawrence Krauss was on stage with Craig, and Krauss is like taking a shirt off and talking about like, look, 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2 or something. There could be like larger quantities of one, and the world is interesting and weird, so God doesn't really make sense.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
not
like,
a good
okay, but
argument.
that's not a great debate tactic, and you
No.
didn't respond to much of anything that Craig said. And then you get other people like Stephen Law, who has a background in philosophy.
Love
Arif
Stephen Law.
Ahmed was another debater. Shelley Kagan had debated against Craig, and I thought it was a much better discussion and much better debate. But yeah, having the background and having the skills, and Craig's another person where you know what to expect. It's like the same basic arguments every time, and he's very much out there. So you can do your research, know what to expect for the debate, and you could just listen to what other people have said and see rebuttals to these arguments, because it's not like he's going to come up with something novel.
Right.
He's just
Exactly.
making a lot of the same arguments.
And listen to the higher level debates. Like I had listened to Dr. Malpass, somebody I used to be very, very good friends with, but I haven't been able to reach him for a while. He did a debate with Dr. Luke Barnes, who hopefully will become on the Non Sequitur show here. I'm working on to get him on. He said he would, but it's just a matter of timing. I mean, it was on fine tuning. And I got to tell you, it was one of the best discussions I've ever seen on fine tuning argument. It wasn't like some atheist going up there going, oh, you're just defining God into existence. It was way more technical and involved in that. And I loved it. And then I had Dr. Alex Malpass do I didn't have it, but I saw, I watched Alex do a debate with William Lane Craig on a very technical aspect of time, dealing with present tense and infinities and things of that nature. And it was so complicated, Justin, that I had reached out to Alex Malpass and I said, dude, can you explain to me what the hell you were even arguing about? I kind of get the basics of it, but can you give me the gist? And I did. And over 3 days, I understood. I wrote a blog entry on explaining what the hell the debate was about. But the average person is not going to listen to those high-level arguments and understand exactly what they're talking about, because they were talking about the actual argument. And Alex Malpass, I think, just annihilated William Lane Craig, because it was about the formalities of the philosophy and infinite things, actual infinities, counting infinities. And the average atheist is not going to have the ability to do that, and they don't want to. They want other people to do the heavy lifting. They want other people to say, oh, this argument is wrong. I'm just going to repeat what they say. This is how Matt Dillahunty, I think, made his name. He was able to criticize arguments, sometimes effectively, sometimes not so much. But then you had thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people watching the atheist experience and just literally parroted what he said as if it was gospel. And that's why I was kind of shunned by the atheist community, because when I said, Matt, you're wrong on this, let me explain why you're wrong, all you had to do was say, oh, well, Steve's an idiot, or Steve's a smug individual, whatever. And, people
Press
might
the
argue.
hang up button.
Yeah, plus the hang up button. Exactly what it was. I dismissed my argument. But here's the thing, Thomas. My arguments convinced Matt Dillahunty of something like he no longer identifies as agnostic atheist. He finds that to be nonsensical. Why? Because of my arguments that at one time he thought were silly or nonsensical. So it can be, it can't happen. You can't change people's minds, right? But you can't shut down, as you said, Thomas. You can't hang up on people like that.
Yeah, he won't even have the discussion. It's like, yeah, he'll go on stage with Andrew Wilson. He'll debate Peterson.
Exactly.
He'll debate all these other people, but he doesn't want to talk to Thomas. He won't engage with AFL. Like his engagement with AFL, we went to a Better Discourse event in, was it Milwaukee, Thomas? But anyway, we have this. We have
2020.
Yeah,
So,
we went to a Mexican restaurant, and we were outdoors. We took a group picture, remove our masks for the group picture, put the masks back on after the picture, and Matt is attacking us on Twitter for spreading the beer flu or whatever. It's like, that's your engagement, Matt?
Yeah, he's all about ego nowadays, and he doesn't want to talk about the topics.
He's like Hammond. He's not.
Yes.
The only
Yes.
time he's mentioned is if in a negative context.
You're 100% correct. And let me get Josh here in a second, Josh Allen. But I even messaged him a while back and said, look, dude, water under the bridge. I have nothing against you, dude. I think that some of his ideologies are wrong, But I go, personally, this is nothing personal to you. I disagree with what you're putting out. Don't take it personally. And, he said the same thing to me, right? And so we have a neutral rapport, right? But Hammett is no longer interested in talking about the topics. I remember the first time I ever reached out to him was probably 7 or 8 years ago. I said, hey, are you able to have this discussion with me? He's like, no, I'm not interested in that. But he would talk about it, generally, but he wasn't able to have a discussion on it to show that his views were, flawed or have issues with it. But anyways, Josh Allen, welcome. You got your hand up there. Can you?
Oh, hey, what's going on, guys? This sounds like a really cool space, and real intelligent people here. Ayan Hirsaly. I bought Sam Harris's Moral Landscape years ago, which is a pretty decent read. I guess I am a Christian, but it's more like I think a lot of this stuff it's obviously symbolic and allegory. There obviously wasn't a real like zombie resurrection. I think this is like a hero archetype. Like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's not a literal ghost, obviously. It's more of it's symbolic for generation to generation, passing down knowledge and wisdom and things. It's not a literal ghost. And I think I guess the thing that there's just it's undeniable that a lot of Christians they read this stuff literally. I don't know what to do about that. I guess the one part I am concerned about, and I could just speak, anecdotally from my experience talking to people on the right, people who are Christians, and even people that are just moderate Christians like myself. I think it's scared. There was 2 to 3 things that really, I think, is creating the extremism. It was a lot of the transgender stuff, which I'll try to be careful with I don't want to offend anybody. I just think.
Look, we all look. I have a lot of transgender friends that I support, and I being called a transphobe because I support certain certain people, and other people I call out on their ideologies. So feel free to express yourself any way you want. You're not going to offend anybody here at all.
Right. I just think a lot of people, like I said, people on the right wing, people who are moderate, Christians. I think it freaked a lot of people out. It created a moral panic when the trans stuff started to get pushed on the children.
I agree.
And then I think, along with some of the COVID missteps, and then that in a combination, what you just said earlier, Steve, because I'm trying to do a better job of listening to people. I think those 2 things in a combination with a lot of the atheist community, I don't want to say they haven't given good arguments for a moral, good philosophical arguments for morality. Like Sam Harris has attempted it. Other people way smarter than us and me have attempted it. There's utilitarianism, but I just think that has to be put more at the forefront. Those are just my few words. You guys are
the landscape. And I'm not going to dive too much into moral theory right now. A lot to unpack in what you said, really, actually. But the moral landscape and the ability to have a objective morality based upon a hypothetical imperative, I think it's important. I think that's what we mean by morality when we're talking about societal creatures. So if I want to base an objective moral framework in a hypothetical imperative using a goal-oriented grounding in eudaimonia, which is basically human flourishing, nothing wrong with that. Now, people don't have to accept that, right, Josh? People can say, look, I have my own moral views. That's fine. But if I want to ground morality in that and have normative ethics, basically more of what's called an ariatic view rather than deontic, that I base it on virtue ethics, then nothing wrong with that. I really do love virtue ethics. But as you're right, though, there has to be a little bit more pushback on theists saying, hey, look, become a theist and Christian for morality reasons. But is that really the reason why people can become Christian? Like you said, you're a Christian, but you think a lot of it's myth. So what is the core things about Christianity you do accept, and why would that be convincing to an atheist, you think, about, oh, look, we have morality, you don't? The atheist just says, well, we do, and we can put it this way. How many atheists have you ever seen say, damn it, you're right, naturalism doesn't account for morality, theism only does, ergo God exists? I have never seen anybody do that.
No, I agree with you. Maybe I didn't word it correctly, because there are a lot of at least like good secular arguments for a moral truth or or at least something close to it. I guess I don't know. I think there was just a few things, like I said earlier, that have happened in the past few years, maybe a little bit longer. Like I said, that created a moral panic.
All right, but when you say that you're a Christian, you're not like a firebrand Baptist. You're obviously not a younger creationist, but you just basically believe there's a God, and you believe that God came down in human form, either as a being called Jesus or the Son of God. Is that what you believe?
No, I don't even believe, like, I don't think, like, I believe there's probably some type of creator, and that's just pretty much as far as I go. And I think the stories in the Bible are just they're it's a hero archetype. There's
Oh, I
stories.
agree.
It's
Yeah, I agree.
like the Terminator series. It's like
to rank
Star
Ranger
Wars.
on. I mean, as
Yeah,
Rich Carrier, I think, does make a point on that
it's
with the
story.
rank Ranger on her Type 1
Yeah,
hero. Yeah.
it's like stories about the human condition, life lessons and stuff like that. I don't literally believe, like, some of the
Why do you call
the
that
thing
Christian, though, if I can ask?
um I guess that's a good question. I guess I identify
I'll
with
try.
some of the
I
lessons.
try.
Yeah, I guess I identify with some of the moral lessons in the Bible.
But it sounds cultural. I mean, the same reason, like, Richard Dawkins, recently said he came, he didn't come out as a cultural Christian. Actually, Thomas knows. Dawkins has always said he was a cultural Christian. When he reiterated it not too long ago, people lost their minds. He's been saying that. I think the first time I saw him say something similar was like 2009 or something.
He's been saying it since shortly after the God Delusion came out, and he's saying it in a way that most people don't understand. Like, unfortunately, when some people say that they are a cultural Christian, that they like see the merits of Christianity and they really, really like it. He's not even like that.
Nope.
He's
Nope.
British. So
I'm a cultural Jew. I love things like
yeah.
matzo bra, and I love Manischewitz, and I like the culture. Doesn't mean I have any affinity toward the religion.
It's like I said, maybe I'm not trying to be funny, but this is the best way I can describe it. Like, I call myself a Christian because it's like saying, "Oh, I'm a fan of the movie Terminator." Like, I like that type of hero archetype and some of the cool
I gotcha.
storylines.
So let me ask people though, and other people that are listening, if you want to come up, but you can join on your own, I think. Thomas, so that kind of Christian that Josh is, I don't think like Atheists for Liberty should even care. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but they shouldn't care about that kind of Christian. That kind of Christian's fine. Let them live their life the way they want. I don't see how.
We've always had that view.
Yes, I know.
So, like we have even some Christians that are members of ours because they like the content. But again, the only thing that makes us different, since we're an atheist organization, we will still promote. We still will promote atheism. We still will promote that people should abide by that truth claim more than just the benefit to society claim, right?
Here's the thing about Thomas. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish your train of thought.
Yeah, so we'll still take the same position as Richard Dawkins will, that it's best to still go by the truth, rather than maybe what makes one person feel comfortable or better for society. But like we have no quarrel with Josh. Hell, we have no quarrel with people that are even more a lot of people who are even more fervent in their faith than Josh is. So, but because we are an atheist organization, we're not just secularists for liberty, right? We are an organization full of non-believers. We still very much care about what the reality of the cosmos is.
Yeah,
and what the reality of the universe
I agree.
is.
I think all of us do, right? I mean,
but we're not going to be disrespectful to people. We're not going to go ad hominem with people. I'm part of plenty of initiatives, projects, organizations where it's very important for us to get along regardless of our views, maybe some of our specific religious beliefs or political views. That's kind of how Atheist Liberty got started. In the first events and places that we've gone to, we had to adopt the big tent mentality of getting along with people who disagree with us. But I still think it's important that we as atheists tell the truth, that we as atheists don't lie about our view on faith, our view on religious belief per se, but still be respectful to individuals, even if we have some disagreements with them.
Yeah, and not go down this path too far, but I have to bring it up. By the way, I think didn't Alea come into a hang up before, but we couldn't get her up. She was here.
I
with
believe
Michael,
so. I believe I was there for that
Sherlock. Yeah, with Michael Sherlock. So Alea, if you could come up now, that'd be great too. But here's the thing about believing what's true, and Thomas is going to cringe a little bit, but deal with it. If we want to believe what's true, then if there is no God, then that would be the belief that we should want to have, right? If God does not exist, we should have that belief, because the only way atheism can be true if it's not just not theism. The only way atheism can be true if it's propositional, because then it's truth apt. And the only way atheism can be true if the ontological conditions exist that there is no God. Just like the only way the proposition of theism can be true is if the ontological condition is God does exist. And I think that's a very strong point out to make, that if, and not necessarily for atheists for freedom, for liberty, I understand why they don't particularly hold that strong view. I think they should, but whatever. It is that if you are talking about true and false, atheism can only be held as the belief there's no God. It would make no sense to have non-theism as a true or false proposition. It's not a proposition. It's a psychological state. And so I think that is important. But again, that's not for political reasons. I understand that. But for philosophical reasons, as people know, atheism is a belief that God does not exist for that very reason, because if there is no God, that statement is true. And I want to believe that statement if it is true. So that's my little diatribe on that. Who else we got? Master of Cereal. Hey, what's up, buddy? How are you? Come on up. And by the way, I love these types of discussions. And Thomas, thank you for joining. I do want to. I wish I could do more with Atheists for Liberty, and I do want to be involved with more discussions that are more in my wheelhouse. But yeah, I'm grateful that you put it on Facebook, and I'm grateful that you do invite people. And let me know what my membership dues are.
Yeah, no, certainly. Well, but for membership dues, on the most part, they're automatic.
They're automatic. I know,
unless you have something with your credit card company or an issue like that. But we always have to refresh our members database and still check it, because we want to make sure people are still in the movement.
I'm happy to be a member, and I do support that. So I support you guys. You know that.
I always tell people,
more.
Oh yeah,
I wanted to be a rich man, so I should have been a preacher. You know.
Oh, you know, it's funny. That's funny, Josh, that you say that, because here's the thing. A lot of people say, they use that term grifter out there, right? I think that came up in the space, if somebody's grifting or not. Like, who was it that changed their position and somebody said, they're grifting
Russell Brand,
Russell
I
Brand.
remember.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that he's always had kind of a spirituality. But here's the thing. None of us are making any kind of real profit on any of this. Certainly not me. I don't do any of this for any kind of self-benefit other than getting my views out. I've lost like 80% of, the core base over the last 6 or 7 years. People move on, and my content changed, and I didn't stream for like 8 months. I totally lost my foundation because I didn't have the energy to stream for pretty much 8 months. If people remember, I wasn't streaming very much. I was not medically well, but I am in much better shape now, and I am trying to stream more. And that isn't to build back my base. That obviously probably never happened. What it is the one or two people that I do reach, the one or two people that do listen, the people like the Thomas Sheedys of the world and Justin and other people out there that have similar thoughts, that's what I'm going for. I want to be around people that amplify my views, and I can amplify theirs. And that's, I think, how you do activism. That's just my personal view on that.
How do you think, what's your opinion on, because what kind of scares me, I'm kind of like with Thomas, and it's not just like within religion, it's in a lot of different ideologies, but one of the, like with the topic that we're discussing, how do you even talk to somebody? Because I basically, when I was raised like an evangelical, like nut job, like just the weird stuff. And when I got to like high school age, I realized, man, this is insane. But I lost a lot of friends, trying to talk like this, dude. This is not like, this stuff is symbolic, man. It's just not, the allegory in the Old Testament. They tell these stories like Noah's Ark so they can remember the story, because they're just stories about the human condition. There's not a literal fucking Noah's Ark.
I think we all agree. Genesis was an oral tradition from the Jews.
Right.
It was an oral story that was passed down from generation to generation.
So I just don't know how. I mean, there's 40 million people that believe this stuff, maybe more in America.
You know what it is?
It's
scientific literacy. It's scientific literacy. And this is what I think Atheists for Liberty, that I respect them for. They advocate for science without going into scientism. Because once you go into scientism, you've lost the plot, right? So science is great. We all should strive to have scientific facts and go by science. But we cannot hold the position that scientism, science is the only way to acquire knowledge, or even the best. It could be argued science is the only effective way to acquire knowledge through empirical testing. I agree with that, but not knowledge in the philosophical sense. But I do think that by promoting science, and this is why I think getting gender theory and queer theory out of society is so important, because it has encroached upon science. Science is fundamental to understanding our reality, and it all ties in together. There's a holistic approach, and people say, what does gender theory have to do with science, or gender theory have to do with atheism or politics? These are all interrelated for that very reason, because when you have a theory out there that says, oh, we're no longer a species that has the male of the species and the female of the species based upon comedic sex, as Colin Wright points out, you've lost what I would say would be the foundations. Just like if somebody would deny the canonical laws of logic, if they didn't accept identity, law of identity, or excluded middle, or non-contradiction for classical logic, they're basically throwing away the foundational ingredients of the very core of logic. Now, I'm not saying there's other logics that are out there that don't use those. Of course there is. But in classical logic, those are foundational. And I think the same thing happens, and Colin Wright points that out when he's talking about, hey, saying there's more than two sexes. There's not. So I think there's a holistic approach, and I think that the way we get people to realize that things like Noah's Ark is a story that is strictly by educating them on what it would take for that to actually have happened. It is just a nomenological impossibility. That's my view. Education, and get this nonsense out of the schools, educating people on gender when they should be studying reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's my rant.
See, I agree to that to an extent. So like I want to pick up on the I had something, but like I heard that rant, and now I'm just
sorry. You know how I might get when I get going on my rants. I'm famous for my rants.
Okay, so Josh, I wanted to ask you, because you're like, I'm a Christian. I'm trying to be a good Christian, but there's a lot of difficulties in there. I want to ask you, off the top of your head, how many of the 10 Commandments are reference God? How many of the 10 Commandments are about God?
6?
I think.
Or 4?
Is it the? I think it's 4. Don't make
it's 4. You are right.
Yeah,
it's 4. And you know what?
Okay.
It's the first 4.
Yeah.
You shall not have other gods before me.
Those
you
were the
shall not
important
make
ones.
idols.
Yes.
You shall not. But that's how they lure you in. They're like and that's how and that's why a lot of religious schools out there. Like you have schools that have religion class. I grew up Roman Catholic, and I went to back when I was in Bermuda. Damn. When I was a kid in Bermuda, Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa's. I forget what the school was called, but we had a religion class, and I noticed through every school that I've been that was religious, the religious class, they would skip over any of the bad things other than what would make a good fairy tale. So like the good fairy tales of Noah's Ark, of David and Goliath, and all of those stories that were dumbed down for children. I think that's why we're getting a lot of the arguments say, well, your God is this and that and this and that. And Christians who grew up with the idea that God is infallible, God is all-knowing and loving to everybody, they got it dumbed down as they were growing up. So the first 4 is there so that early on you have it planted in your head, okay, God's a big deal. I need to be sure God is a big deal in my life. And a few people grow out of it, and to those people that grow out of it, maybe they become agnostic, maybe they become atheist. Me, myself, I believe there is some sort of spirituality, but I'm not actively looking for anything to make that spirituality like logical. I think there's no, like, it's exactly like how Steve put it. You can't really logic God. You can't. God is an entity, and therefore a lot of things that God did is very illogical by today's standards and by a lot of different standards.
I think there's 3 main reasons for that, Silenced. I think that people turn to God for primarily three categorical reasons. And again, not absolute, but one, social aspects, right? So family, friends, things of that nature. That's kind of the reason I went to church. 2, fear of, damnation and a hell. Or 3, they want to live on forever, which I have myself considered the ramifications from that. And if you really thought about it, that's scary. I mean, think about living forever and being bored. I mean, I asked that question to Christians, and they're like, "Oh, you'll never be bored." How do you know that? And so, I mean, I think whatever happens, there's a fear that exists there, but we have no idea what that unknown is. Therefore, I'm not going to live my life out of fear, one way or another.
Yeah, and that's nobody should be living their life out of fear. But and that's why I bring up the Ten Commandments, because none of them say that you have to fear God. You just have to. You don't have to make idols. You shall have no other gods. So it's just the one God. Keep the Sabbath day holy, as in every Sunday. Keep it really within your religion, and you shall not take God's name in vain. When people say "God damn it" on the street, it's funny as hell for me. But it's one of those things that people will refer to. Oh, the Ten Commandments are a great way to
They're not a good
introduce
moral code.
morality.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's really not.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. The first 4 is all about God. The 5th one is honor your father and mother. Now, and the last 5 are all about things that you shouldn't do. You don't need someone with a Bible to tell you murdering might be bad, committing adultery might be bad, stealing things might be bad, lying about people might be bad, and coveting things might be bad. You don't need the Ten Commandments to be like, I don't think that would be good if someone did that to me, so maybe I shouldn't do that to somebody else.
Yeah, and
just going to quickly
go
chime on in here
Yes.
for a second. I'm going to get going only because
All right.
I'm going to try to hit the hay. But thank you so much, Steve, for the invite.
We gotta
Definitely
do more,
want to come
man.
in
We got to do more
a
together,
lot
man.
more.
If you ever have a call-in show, my best nights are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Maybe Monday nights; those are my best. But if you ever have a call-in show and you just want to like a one-time thing or whatever, I would co-host with you to have a call-in show any day of the week, man. I would love that.
Oh yeah,
on your channel, this is do it, man. Come on, man. I wanted to. I swear, I'm not even joking. I wish I could do more with Atheists for Liberty.
The Atheist for Liberty experience.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're going to be doing a lot more streams. We just kickstarted our streaming series again on Tuesday with Craig Biddle. So every Tuesday we're going to have streams happening. We have 2 more shows on our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a lot of X Spaces. So definitely a lot of opportunities for us to do stuff like that.
You interviewed me once on that channel. We had fun. That was a good show. Yeah.
More
so thank you, Thomas.
Too, so.
I appreciate it, man. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Seriously, I'm a huge fan of yours, as you know. I respect a lot what you do, and I wish there was more people doing that kind of advocacy, because the rest of us, we just talk about this stuff. I'm not an activist. I don't go out in real life able to change things, but I can verbally try to change the minds of people the best I can through my social media, and that's the best I can do, and I'm trying.
Steve, thank you so much. I'm going to come on a lot more, and you're trying well, and you're successsly doing it well.
Thank you.
So take care, everybody,
All right,
and I'll talk soon.
All right, now Thomas, let's talk shit about him.
Thomas,
Good night, Thomas.
That?
Yeah, right, Thomas too. See, we have fun here.
But yeah, I do have to thank you though, Steve, because I recently started doing like just little X spaces that I started, because me and some of my friends would just go on these logical rants and it would be very interesting. And then after I saw your show, I was like, why didn't we ever record? So I started doing that recently, and it's been a lot of fun.
I appreciate that. It's funny because I get flack, and I'm berated on Twitter, even though my Twitter has blown up. And Reddit, I'm on Reddit now. On certain things, and I mean, I literally got 100 messages the other day from Reddit. Oh my God, if you post something in certain things, oh my God. It just was like, oh my God, I spent 8 hours doing responses, and then somebody says, oh, you ran away. I'm like, after 8 hours, it's not running away. Okay, I went to sleep. I took my freaking 10 milligram sativa and I passed out. Even though indica works better for that, but I it's like, man, I know I'm done, after 8 hours. But yep. I had a friend of mine in the live chat, not going to dox who they are, obviously, but, they messaged me and they basically, were giving me very kind words. And, a lot of people don't realize how much that means to people. When you're vilified for standing up for what you believe in, it really does make a difference when you have kind people say something to the effect of, hey, thank you for what you do, or, just supportive. I do that with a lot of people. I really do. If one day after I'm gone and my hard drives get made public, because Reds Rhetoric has full access to my computer after I'm gone, it is a standing order. Everybody knows this out there. If anything ever happens to me, my roommate sends my hard drives right to Reds Rhetoric, and he can do with them what he will. And unfortunately, there's nothing in any of them that anybody who ever messages me has to be concerned about, right? And he would never ever dox anybody or harm anybody. But you would find, he can show people that I really have gone out of my way to be kind to people and to support people and send a message to people every so often, just checking up on them or, you know, making sure they're okay. And when somebody does that to me, it does mean a lot. So I reciprocate. So that person out there in the live chat, you know who you are. I appreciate it. I can say it's Noel because their name's out there. So
we see you.
Yeah. So, but again, it does mean something to me. These are not just words to me. Especially like I said, people going, "Oh, Steve's a bigot and transphobe." I'm like, for what? For saying that I don't think kids should remove healthy body parts based upon a mental issue? How is that a bigot? That's insanity.
But it's not. It's not. It's just a disagreement, and because that disagreement goes directly against their philosophy, well, not their philosophy, their belief system, they take offense to it. And the only way that they can legitimize that defense is by saying, well, you're a terrible person for believing against me.
It's character assassination.
Yeah, that's all it is character. What do you think of the silenced one? My character was assassinated like crazy by some of these idiots. And
well, that's why I don't take it seriously any longer. I don't. I have a rule now, basically. If somebody's going to start getting into pejoratives where they're just going to attack my character, I have two options. Block them or just walk away. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with them. It's not worth it.
Like I knew it was kind of getting off the rails. I was talking to this person. It was a younger individual. And I just asked him, I said, is there any ontological limits, like at all to gender? Like, can you just be an animal or like, can you dress up as anything? Is there just no ontological limits to any of it? And they started screaming at me. I was like, this is off the rails, man. Like, this is not, this isn't being reasonable. And I'm okay. I want to, for the record, like, I'm okay for, like, when it comes to, like, gender, a little bit of, like, not even just gender. Like, it's okay to, as an adult, to have some type of irrational kinks, or, you know what I mean? Like, to some level,
Yeah.
I get it. But it's just, when you start, it's like what Steve said, when it's starting to become institutionalized where people are getting their body parts chopped off, I just can't go with that. Like, this is, I don't understand that.
The big problem that I have with a lot of the ideology is the people who are hand over fist with money, walking to the bank every week just to do these horrible things, and they're being called righteous for it. These doctors are making so much money off of plastic surgery. Think about that for a minute.
Well, it's funny is I've been told, oh, it's not plastic surgery, and I advocate absolutely it's plastic surgery. It's for aesthetics. There's no medical necessity for it. And this goes into that semantic creep that I talked about earlier. This is a perfect example. The phrase medical necessity used to mean something in medicine. I don't have to be a doctor to know that. Anybody can go look that up. It really meant something that if it was not taken care of, there could be ramifications such as death, harm, pain, something that would actually happen because something has gone wrong with the body. And to say now that cutting off, the healthy body parts of children for gender ideology is not medically necessary. It is simply done to, quote, affirm their belief, which is absolutely absurd. Matter of fact, Ricky Gervais said a brilliant joke the other day. Give him credit where credit is due. He said it used to be when you go into a doctor's office and you say, hey, doctor, I think I'm a pair of curtains. The doctor says, well, pull yourself together. Now it's like the woke version he said was, oh, doctor, I think I'm a pair of curtains. And the doctor responds, well, then you are. And he was right on point. He was right on point. Right on point. It was just affirming the false belief. That's not how you do medicine or psychology.
Yeah, I don't know why. Because you could give up like another classic example of, like, what if I walked into the doctor's office and I said, I want to identify as somebody that doesn't have my left hand anymore.
Right.
Well, how would you argue against that? And it's just then they say, well, you're arguing that's in bad faith, and it's like, but why? That's what you're doing.
Well, and it's funny you mention that because that's exactly what's happening is that when you cannot out-argue somebody, you have to throw out fallacy names. You have to say, oh, that's a straw man. That's a non sequitur. That is a some kind of fallacy, right? That's not engaging fairly because they have no way to actually assail your argument. I have noticed that so many times. Look, one of the very few philosophy courses I ever took was in informal philosophy. was in contemporary rhetoric and informal logical fallacies. This is something that I actually took. I can't say I remember much, but whatever. But the fact is that when somebody says, "Oh, you committed this fallacy," and I know that I didn't, I have asked them, "Well, what is it about this fallacy you think I committed?" I'm not saying that I have never committed a fallacy. I mean, but if somebody, like I had one time, somebody said I committed the 4-term fallacy, which is a very rare fallacy. And you know what happened when I looked at what they said and I looked at my logic? I said, "Damn, they're right." I didn't argue with them. I didn't go, "Oh, what are you? You're an idiot." Blah blah blah. I methodically went through my argument and said, "Yes, you're right. I have committed that fallacy." But they explained to me why I committed that fallacy. When somebody says, "Oh, well, you're not engaging fairly," no, I think your example is right on point, and it should be something that should be taken as a hypothetical. And this is another thing I've noticed from radical Christians, radical TRAs, gender theorists, and queer theorists, and all this other stuff, is they really, really dislike hypotheticals. Really, because hypotheticals are a very good way to have thought experiments about what ifs. And then they argue, well, that's not what's happening. That's a what if. It's like, so what? That hypothetical points out the flaw in your argumentation. That is why you don't want to engage it. Now, I'm granted there are sometimes going down rabbit holes of hypotheticals are not productive. I get this. But sometimes they are, and I get shut down a lot just by saying, "Well, how about this?" "Well, that's a hypothetical. I don't want to talk about that." Well, why not? It shows the problem with your position.
The problem that I have with a lot of hypotheticals that TRAs and a lot of other people like throw out there is that they will introduce an aspect that wasn't in the original question. So, like, if the question is, for example, like this is one of the things that TRAs do all the time. If you say something like, if a trans man, a woman that is transitioning into a man, is originally a man and got pregnant, then they are a woman. And they'll say, "Well, what about the trans men that can't get pregnant, or the trans men that are this race or this age or this," and they'll add something that doesn't belong in the conversation, whether it be taking sex to race or sex to age or sex to culture. And that's where the hypothetical just falls off for me, because you're introducing something that just doesn't matter in the discussion. A lot of the time, it's just to try to introduce something new that they can grasp at in order to go a different route with it.
And they're very prescriptive, right? They're very prescriptive, and the problem with that is when we have the biological categories. When I ask people, and this is the question that shuts down more people than I've ever seen in my life. In humans, right? We are not sequential hermaphrodites. We're not like clownfish that start off as male, produce a small gamete, then produce a larger gamete afterwards. We're not clownfish. So in the human species, is there more than just the male of the species and the female of the species? That is the hardest question for TRAs to answer, and seldom do they ever even attempt it. And then they get into, well, what happens if you don't produce the large gamete? What that means by producing the large gamete is that the male of the species is the one that produces it, but if for some reason during a developmental process they're unable to do so, they're still male. These are called accidentals in philosophy. Just like people have pointed out, and I know Matt Walsh uses this, and I hate to say it because they say, "Well, Steve got that from Matt Walsh." No, people have had this long before Matt Walsh. Humans are basically categorized by properties. Not that if you meet those certain properties, these are descriptive properties. In humans, we're a bipedal species. That describes the human species. Doesn't mean that an individual who's missing a leg is no longer human, because these are not prescriptive terms. It is not saying that if you do not meet these qualifications, you're not human. What it means is for the particular population, the general population is bimodal. We are bimodal creatures, and that certain people have accidentals where they didn't develop property where they would have been bimodal, or excuse me, bipedal, if they had developed property. And that's when it gets into the DSDs and intersex, which have no relationship really to transgender. It really doesn't. I think the transgender movement have hijacked the DSDs. I know a lot of people that have DSDs, and they're sick of it. They don't want to be included in that.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, like, and to even prove your point, well, how can you prove that? Stairs.
Yeah.
Stairs were designed for two legs.
So can
That's where
anybody
they're
answer
bipedal.
that though? Is there more than the male and the female of the human species? Because if there is, I don't know of any. And I think
there really isn't.
Good.
And there isn't. And a lot of people, if I'm sure a hyperactive trans rights activist would be like, well, what about intersex people?
Absolutely
Steve
unrelated.
already addressed that. So
Well,
there was an
this is the
accidental.
this is the confusion between bimodal distribution, but by the way, I don't even really fully accept a distribution. After talking to Emma, Fonda Beatles, right? Emma Watson, is that her last name? She had a great argument. It's Emma Watson, isn't it?
It is Watson. Yeah.
Yeah, she had a wonderful argument of why it's actually not even a distribution. It is a discontiguous set of data points, which can be expressed in a form of a distribution, but it's not really what the data points show. And I agreed with her. But in a bimodal distribution, you have two nodes. And something cannot be both nodes. You have to be either one node, the other node, or somewhere in between. You cannot be on both, right? You cannot land on both nodes. And sex is not a bimodal distribution. And yet there's some graft out there that says sex is a bimodal thing. No, these are talking about sexual traits, secondary traits about sex that are dependent upon what we normally find for males and females. That's not the same thing as sex being bimodal, because sex is not bimodal. It is binary. And this is where it comes into play, where people start saying, well, if you say things like that, you're transphobic. No, that's biology.
Right.
Yeah. Josh, did you want to chime in? 'Cause...
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and that's why, like, I'm very happy to go meet my friends at the bar this next Monday, because one of my friends, a gay guy, I asked him, I was like, hey, what is your opinion on the whole LGB without the TQ thing, like cutting out the TQ thing? He's like, okay, all right, so the simplest way that I could put it, LGB believes in biology. After that, it's speculation. That's why it's gender theory. And I was like, that makes sense, because the furthest you get with the LGB is bisexual. Bi, two genders. Humanity is a binary gender, because man and woman produce baby. Like, that's just the basic amount of it. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. But but you wouldn't speak up against them. They're like, no. As long as I get to believe what I want to believe, they can do whatever the hell they want with their life.
That's the whole thing with gender in social constructs, right? Look, I'm not against a structuralist approach, even though a lot of this was post-structuralist. But I'm not against an approach where in constructivism you want to develop a schema where gender is different from sex. I don't have an issue with that in the social domain. I don't, because if you want to talk about gender as far as expression, boys like blue, girls like pink, girls play with dolls, boys plays with Tonka trucks. These are things that are social conventions, okay? But gender is not a social convention in biology. And that's what I'm saying, that when you cross over domains of discourse and you start having this semantic creep between linguistic terminology in one domain moving into the other, that's where we need to say enough, stop. No, keep it to your domains. If you want to have gender the way you view it, that's fine. But to me, a lot of them, it's almost like they believe in some kind of engendered soul, that people are at the time of conception are going to be male or female and would be damned their biology.
Well, yeah, that's why it's called transgenderism, Steve. That's why they had to put the ism at the end of that, so that people believe in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said that ism actually in philosophy, believe it or not, gender to mean the proposition, and in those propositions you either believe it or you don't, right? So there is something to be said for that. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And by the way, I pronounced Aaliyah's name wrong, so it's Aaliyah. So welcome, Aaliyah.
Aaliyah.
Yeah.
I worry about a very extreme right wing, like snapback. That's one of the things that keeps me up at night because of this stuff. How far it's gotten out of control,
Dude, there's been scientific journals now that have completely lost the plot of science, and they've been called out by scientists. It is an encroachment in the scientific domain. It is as bad as if all of a sudden you find physics journals start talking about flat Earth. There's no difference. And it's all about semantic creep because they want to change those terminologies. What's that?
Now, are they talking about flat Earth as to how it could be possible?
I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying it as an analogy. It's because words have different meanings in the social domains like the soft sciences as opposed to
Gotcha.
the harder sciences. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's no difference. Oh, there is a difference between hard and soft science. I'm sorry. To me, there is. If you don't believe that, that's fine. You're entitled to that. But when you start using gender as a social construct in the sociological aspects of the word, and you start converting, trying to convert it to biological sex, there's going to be pushback.
Of course, there's going to be, and rightfully so, because any idea worth its salt should be challenged by another idea in order to determine whatever legitimacy is between both ideas.
So Awesome asks, what are the odds of many of those journals being corrupt? It's not a lot of them, but it's a few of them. I mean, look when Scientific America put out their ridiculous piece on sex and gender that everybody called out, and then in Nature there was one by Claire. I don't remember her last name, Claire something, but she even clarified, no, there are two sexes, but there's a huge distribution of sexual traits, which I agree with. But that was lost in her paper because people were just seeing that she had wrote that sex isn't binary, but she's talking about sexual traits, and she made that very clear to people. Claire Weir, was that her last name? And so I think that I think it's critical when we're talking about terminology is that we don't encroach into different domains, and that is exactly what I fight against. And so when I say that I believe there's two biological sexes and there's two genders that associate with that, I am talking about biology. I'm not talking about queer theory where you can have an infinite amount of genders. I believe that those aren't even genders. They're personalities that they're calling gender. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, I would agree
Which they can do.
100%.
They can do that. I don't have to accept it, though. You don't have to accept it, right?
No.
But that's what I'm saying. If you don't accept their ideology, you're labeled a bigot or transphobe, yet their ideology seems to be in violation of the very core principles of scientific principles, like biology. I don't know, man.
I guess another question, too, like I couldn't get an answer from one of their activists is, let's say someone is a tomboy, well, then how would you, like, what type of methodology would you use scientifically to decide which direction they should go in?
Dude, I have the same argument on my Twitter, Josh. Do you follow me on Twitter, Josh? I think you do, right?
No. Okay. I think I just gave you a follow.
I was gonna say, why not? If you're listening, follow. So one of my arguments was similar to that, and I asked people, because I like to do polls and get people's views. I said, look, let's say you have two twin brothers that are identical in every aspect. One brother comes out and says, I'm trans now, and they're standing in front of you both fully naked, and one just says, I am trans now. By what scientific process, other than believing what they say, I mean, objective science, do you measure one to be trans other than the other? Because it is constitutive solely upon the belief that that person has an incongruence between their mental state and the physical state. And we don't have an objective reality to measure that with, then what is it are you measuring? The whole fact that people have some kind of gender dysphoria is because they believe that they are not the sex that their body is. They're not happy with their body. It is a type of body dysmorphia. Just like, somebody who believes that they're overweight when they're actually very anorexic. That is a body dysmorphia. We don't just sit there. We don't just start cutting off things of fat of them, trying to get their body to match their mind. We try to get their mind to match the body. And if they can't, we try to alleviate that as much as possible through psychological processes. So if somebody who's actually trans, who actually does have that belief, the goal, I think, should be to get them to at least accept that and be productive in their life and minimize the discomfort. But I don't think that by them, at least as far as kids, to intervene by puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones or to remove body parts is the way to resolve that. If they want to do that as an adult, that is their choice. They have freedom to do that. But at the same token, let me just throw this out there, and I'm sure I'm going to get criticized for it, but you know what? That's fine. People have a right to criticize. But if somebody is mentally unwell, where they have a discongruent perception of reality from the ontological state of binary sex, then it is a belief, and that belief is false. And all you're doing is just trying to alleviate that discomfort, but you're not actually converting them to the sex that they weren't born biologically. And I think that you're taking advantage of a mentally unwell person sometimes if that person is that far gone where they actually believe something so incongruent with reality. There is an argument to be made that pharmacology, medical professionals, sex change, gender doctors are taking advantage of somebody who has not a firm grasp about reality. There's an argument to be made there, I think.
There is an argument to be made there, definitely.
I'm not saying that's not my argument, but there's an argument to be made. There's a difference there.
There's definitely a contradiction somewhere in that, and for the life of me, I listen to a lot of I listen to whatever I can whenever I'm working, in order to kind of feel like, I want to think about that. And when it comes down to a lot of the gender arguments, a lot of them just fall flat when you ask them how many genders there are, because infinite is not a number for a finite being.
Yeah, because of personality. So Chemo, my mod, says this is what atheist activism ought to focus on. No, but here's the thing, though. It is all related. This is what the point of being is. If atheist activism is going to be out there to promote something, it should be critical thinking.
Right.
That is, I think, is foundational to any solid movement. And I think that when you have things like queer theory that is antithetical to reason and rationality, then yes, I think that it is something that at least tangentially as a movement needs to be addressed. Because if we want to maintain science as being objective, and we want to maintain science as being something we can rely on, then why would we introduce, like, for example, remember when they used to talk about colonization and how if white man didn't go to Africa and introduce their beliefs, that African scientists would have maybe come up with things like pi not being 3.14159, right? 3.14159265358979232. Yeah, I got a lot of it memorized.
Yeah.
So I'm just I'm humble bragging there. I'm humble bragging.
No, that's fine.
But actually they said that. This was something that actually was brought up. That it's just like, wait a minute here. No, pi is pi. Remember the Indiana state bill in the 1800s when they wanted to redefine pi to 3, and a mathematician stood up after it had already been passed by the what was it, the House but not the Senate. I think it was, and the mathematician said, "No, you cannot do this. This is not how it works. You cannot redefine a mathematical constant."
The 0.14 yada 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 is still a portion.
But that's why I think that it is interrelated. Do I think it should be a big part of atheist activism? No, of course not. But if we're going to promote science, we have to promote science from a foundational aspect. And when you're starting to teach kids that they might not be the body they're born into, that produces a lot of stress upon the child. Think about it, there have been parents that said that their kid was trans because the kid didn't like the haircut that he had. There have been parents that said the kid was trans, like Jazz Jennings. Her parents said she was trans. As soon as she started talking, they knew she was trans at like age 2 or something, or before. That's the parents pushing their ideology on the kid.
Yeah, that's something called narcissism.
It is.
Because they want to be loved.
It is. It's narcissism and Munchausen by proxy in some ways.
A great man once told me that the percentage of a fact that is not correct is an opinion. It's not real.
Yes. So, I mean, like I said, I think we're all, in agreement on the foundations. It's just the activists need to put that out there and not be worried about being called names like bigot or transphobe or anything like that. Like somebody pointed out, everybody's a Nazi who doesn't agree with somebody else, right? Antifa thinks everybody's a Nazi, and Antifa is one of the most dangerous organizations out there. They're all about shutting down free speech. By the way, you don't need your hand up. Just go ahead and add.
Just like the Nazis did.
To be conspiratorial, sometimes I wonder if, like, if some of these right-wing groups, if they're infiltrated, like I'm talking about far right now, maybe infiltrated some aspects of influence within the culture, and they're purposely pushing like the crazy trans stuff or the Antifa stuff on purpose to make it, to create a boomerang effect.
But the problem is that requires a lot of work.
Maybe I'm being too conspiratorial.
Yeah, that's a little. I think that's a lot of work. I don't see the Matt Walsh's of the world doing that.
That's getting into QAnon territory.
Yeah. But I mean, it does suck that there are radical religious people out there that they are very much people being gay just because they think God doesn't like that. That to me is untenable.
Right.
And somebody wants to call that a bigot, at least they might have a little more grounding for that. But even then, there's arguments that look, that's their core belief. I don't know if I'm going to call that a bigot, but I definitely think if you advocate that the government, execute people for being gay like Kent Hovind does, yeah, that's going to qualify to me. That's going to qualify to me.
That's crazy. Did Ken Hovind, he said that? That's
Yes.
insane.
Oh,
Yep.
yes. Oh, many times.
He's
Him and
the
Steven
evolution.
Anderson. They both do.
Yeah.
Oh, I know Kent. Yes, I know Kent very well. We go way back. He's been on my channel many times, and he is absolutely 100% in the camp that the government should execute people for being gay, which is one of the most deplorable, despicable things in the world. So how is it that anybody who says I'm like a bigot against gay people, when that is something that I stand firmly against? I will be there standing up right there with the LGBTQ to say that is offensive, that is immoral, and that's disgusting. And that's what the LGBT, at least the LGBT part of the
Alphabet
DQ,
soup
Right,
community.
that's right. I have to remember how many letters there are anymore. But that's what they used to stand up for. That's why they want to distance themselves from the TQ plus, because they're no longer just wanting stuff like that. The TQ wants to change and mold society to their views, not just be accepted like the gays and the lesbians wanting in the 70s and 80s. They just want acceptance. They have that now, and every one of them who fought for it, were the ones that were out there being, putting themselves out there in danger to express themselves as they want of who they should love, and I have no issue with that. But transgender
Stonewall
is not about that. Yeah.
The Stonewall gays were the real gays in America.
Who threw the first brick? No, I don't. Right?
I forget. I forget. I know the name was.
It's a
put
reference
out there.
to. Yeah. Well, no, I don't think nobody even knows. It's a reference to Stonewall. But anyways, man, I am a little bit tired. I do want to kind of wrap this up a little bit. Anyway, I love this Twitter space. I'm going to be streaming probably tomorrow night, but a little bit differently, I think. But anybody else want to add something? Kim, I see you're in here, Red. My live chat on YouTube. Anything else you guys want to add on this? Because I think we really did kind of get to the core of the issue of what I think atheist activists should be doing. And I'm grateful for Atheists for Liberty for doing it.
As long as they're entertaining what could be factual in a logical sense and sticking to everything that has already been determined as fact, I think they'd be doing a lot better.
Yeah.
They'd be doing great.
Yeah, Jamie Russell points out this. He says, is it, I think it means anti-theist, to want the state to execute gays. I mean, it is theologically and technologically according to the text, and not necessarily so. I think it's something that I read into. I mean, I think that, according to the Bible, if you pick up sticks on a Sunday, you can be put to death. Do we do that now? Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't understand Kent's logic on that. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous, and I do think it's immoral. I do think it's antithetical to Christianity to promote stuff like that. I really do.
There's a lot of stupid laws out there. Like, you can't go whale fishing on a Sunday in Ohio. Like, that's a law.
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of dumb laws.
There's some really dumb laws out there. I just want to say before the space ends, thank you again, Steve, for
welcome,
inspiring
Josh.
me to do my own little show on the X platform.
Really?
I
have some influence on that.
Yeah, you do.
Cool.
You do, because I loved the conversation and hearing even during the spaces where I can't come in and speak, I still love the rants that you do because I can follow along. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I can follow along so well that I lose my train of thought. It's insane.
Awesome says no, Steve. No, that's in the Old Testament. Why are you strawmanning? No, it is in the Old Testament. That's not straw man. It's there. That's not straw man. It's literally in there.
It's still the
So what is
Bible.
in the Old Testament? I mean, that should be irrelevant. It's still in the Bible. God commanded it at one time. It was God's law.
Hey, Steve, do you still talk to Matt Dillahunty or?
Oh no, I haven't spoken to him in forever. Last thing I ever heard him even say about me was that I was smug, but I was right about agnostic atheism, basically. Good enough.
He is a really smart guy, though. Like he is pretty brilliant.
Look, I'll give Matt credit where credit is due. Matt knows the Bible. Matt was training to be a preacher. I will never take that away from him, and I would never debate him on biblical stuff. But I do think that he eschews logic and reason for his own ego, because he would never. He really hates even admitting that I was right about agnostic atheism, but he'll never admit that I'm right, that atheism should be held as a belief rather than a non-belief for multiple reasons. He'll never capitulate to that ever. It would ruin him. I could take down Matt Dillahunty just by have ever agreed to that. Basically, what I would do.
Yeah, and
Well, wait, hey, awesome. He says ridiculous coming from you. Wow, Steve, what does that even mean? Awesome. What do you mean, man? Tell me what the issue is, because it is in the Old Testament. If you picked up sticks on a Sunday, you could be put to death. I find that to be egregious. Just like I think it's egregious if you say that gays should be killed for who they love. That's insanity.
Yeah.
I want to look it up now. I'm probably going to look that up in the morning. Like, picking up sticks on a Sunday. Where is it?
Oh, it's in this. Oh, dude. See, here's the thing. Like Matt could probably quote chapter and verse, right? I know John 3:16. I know kind of the gist of what's in the Bible, but I can never tell you.
They should do an SNL episode of like all the rules you break in the Old Testament. Like,
how many? There were 613 mitzvahs. I mean, come on, But thank you thank you for the offer. I appreciate that. And like I said, now that I'm feeling better, I am streaming more. I'm never going to reach the level that I was before. I'm not even going to try. Nor do I think I even want to. I want to be outside the public eye. It costs me too much emotionally, physically, financially. I'm in a good place right now. And I like to stay there. And I don't care who listens. I don't care who watches. I don't care who calls me this or that. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to be blunt. Fuck everybody else. I have no onus in my life to give a damn about people that treat people like shit. I don't.
Amen.
I don't. And nor should anybody else. And people can say, well, you treat trans people like shit. No, I'm not. I literally have trans people on my show that I get along with fantastic. Why would I treat them like shit for being trans? I go about ideology, not people. They go about people.
Yep.
That's the difference.
Yeah, and Matt's can you hear me? Is it working?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then there was the drama with Arden too, that was claiming that if you have certain people on the show, then you're promoting transphobia, but you never even had the people on the show. They weren't even scheduled to be guests. It was nothing. It was just someone else saying they wanted to come on the show, and there was all this drama
Arden
about
did that
that.
to me. Arden told me if I had Untangelo on, you remember that?
Yep, that's what I'm referencing. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, okay, so that's what you're referencing. Yes, I remember that vividly, and I didn't have Untangelo on, but for other reasons. It certainly was because anything Arden said. It just wasn't beneficial at the time. I have no problem with Untangelo coming on my channel. But I didn't have Untangelo on, had anything to do with Arden. But Arden, who is Arden to tell me who I can and cannot have on my channel? Again, fuck that. Not going to happen. Never has happened in the past. Never will happen in the future. And this is why I'm so grateful to have at least some platform for me to say what I want to say. And if people want to listen, great. I notice people are listening. And if people don't, then don't bother with it. Don't listen to things you don't have any interest in, and if you want to critique it, go do it on your own channel. I'm not going to pay attention unless it's interesting to me. But if you're some asshole out there that just wants to criticize me, and I don't watch 95% of the shit about me, I will never see, and I never have. There's things about me I don't even know because I find out later. Hey, Steve, what about this? I'm like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Oh, this video said this, this, and this. I'm like, I have no idea. Never watched it. Real quick.
Yeah.
Kawasa says for 10,000.
Yeah, and who are?
Wait, look, I got a super chat. Kawasa says for 10,001. Thank you, Kawasa. He says, make allies. That's one thing I would ask of atheist organizations. But more and more, the only thing I see these days is they seem to want to antagonize everyone. I agree with Kawasa that the new atheists were like that. But Kawasa, do you see in social media new atheism is dying out? Those types of angry atheists, I don't see as much on at least Twitter. And I see them on Facebook. Oh, my God. Oh my God, are they on Facebook? The dumbest of the dumb are on Facebook groups about evolution and atheism. The dumbest of the dumb. The next I've seen is probably Twitter, and then Reddit's kind of up there too. But I've seen some smart people on Reddit, so But I do agree that Kawasa that making allies with people, but make allies with good people. If people are harming other people, there's no reason to have anything to do with them. I don't anymore, and I never will. There's people that are dead to me that people know I'll never mention their names again. They're dead to me.
Can I ask you one more question before you go?
Yes, and then I got to wrap it up.
Do you think this is kind of a weird question, but because I was thinking about what you said on the kind of the left and right, how they tend towards authoritarianism. Do you think there's something about human nature that makes authoritarianism inevitable, or do you think institutions and environments make people authoritarian?
It's not inevitable because of the people wanting to be put in power. It's because I this is sandboxed here, so don't take me for any great lengths. But I think some people just want to be led. I think some people just want to be told what to do because they don't want to think for themselves. It's easier for them.
Yeah, and they also don't want if that goes wrong, they want someone to blame and not blame
Absolutely.
themselves.
But isn't that where we talk about morality and God? Oh, it's not me that says this. It's God that says this. And they defer their own personal moral code to God. That's the same exact thing that you just said.
Exactly. Right around back to square one. Right
Yeah,
before
good
the
way
end
to
of
end this, right? I mean, full
Heck
circle.
yeah.
Full circle. All right. Thanks, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow night. Silenced, Justin, Kim, Red, Josh. You guys were great. My live chat, Kawasa. Thank you for being here for my modding and making a super chat. Kimomaki, as always, thank you for modding. Yeah, I'm just going to wrap it up. This was fun, guys. I'm going to end the stream here and also the Twitter. So I don't mean to leave abruptly, but I'm just going to kind of end it. But anything last minute you guys want to say? Anything you want to shout out for your channels?
Oh, it's always a good go. As far as what I'm doing on X, as far as a shill, I am coming. I've started a series called The Silenced Banter on X, and where I get a guest to talk about things. The other night I had a buddy of mine, Bozo Prozo. We talked about all the crazy things kicking off currently in Pride Month and how people are reacting to it. And as far as a few things that we covered, I'm sure people know the name Dylan Mulvaney.
Oh, yes.
And how Bud Light lost a lot of money last year, and how
Like
Bud Light's
$14
not
billion
doing
in capital in market
yeah,
value.
and they're not doing a Pride thing this year. I wonder why.
You know what's so funny is they didn't recoup that. People were like, "Oh, they're going to recoup." No, it's still down. And she lost her job, the VP, whatever her name was. It's so long ago, I don't remember her name, nor do I care. Something AH. I remember her initials were AH, but
I know there were trans rights activists. Yeah.
And so I got a lot of crap for that. I had to block a friend because I asked him real nicely, look, we disagree on this. I think Mulvaney is a con man, but let it go. And they wouldn't do it. And they kept calling me a transphobe. I'm like, look, you're a friend of mine. I expect that from people that are shitty people that I have nothing to do with, but you're a friend of mine. And if you're going to call me that, you're not acting as a friend to me. And I ask, I have a respect for people. Like Justin here, I go back with Justin. If I started calling Justin something, and Justin said to me, look, that's just really not cool. You can believe it, but just, don't call me that. I would have respect for that. That's what friendship is about. And if somebody doesn't respect my friendship, then I'm just going to end that friendship. Unfortunately, I'm too old at my stage of my life to try to keep friendships that are not worth keeping. And it's sad. It really is sad. It really is.
Because you care about people.
I do.
It's happened a lot with the woke stuff, but the nice thing is we find different people, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's billions of people out there. I mean, there's no shortage of people to talk to. Somebody's on Reddit, they're like, oh, well, you came to Reddit because you were fishing for people. I'm like, dude, have you seen me on Twitter and Facebook? I mean, there's no shortage of people to talk to.
There's not. There's really not. And the most recent episode that I did was the harsh truths of Pride Month. So I had an engaging conversation on that one. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, invite me on. I'm happy to join. All right, guys. So thank you very much, guys.
Oh, one more thing. You said to share channels. I have two podcasts. There's the Stoic Solutions podcast where I focus on Stoic philosophy. I've had a lot of authors on as guests recently, and then I have the Hurdy-Gurdy Travel podcast where I talk about making money, saving money, and traveling. I'm going to be speaking at several events this year in Chicago and Las Vegas, talking about credit cards, miles and points, and loyalty programs.
Dude,
so check out.
I'm a fan of points. I use points. Absolutely, do I use points?
Yep.
Because hey, look, if they're going to offer it to me, I'm going to take them. It's free.
It's a smart investment.
It really is. I mean, I really do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just be disciplined with credit and don't overspend, and you're going to make a lot from the banks.
I have an 812 credit rating. That's pretty decent, ain't it?
That is pretty decent.
Yeah. So
you got Dave Ramsey. Everybody's going to go into debt. Everybody's going to overspend. Well, no, not true. If you're going to be a responsible adult.
I have literally zero balance. I have multiple credit cards with I have a lot of credit that I can get. A lot of credit in credit cards, but I use them very, very fiscally responsibly. They're all paid off. They're all zero debt. I have no debt. I live debt free, and that's how I'm able to survive. And I recommend to anybody to live debt free, except obviously buy a house if you can. I owned a house. And maybe I can understand a car, but I have no use for that. But other than that, debt-free. Rent and food. That is your primary thing for the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Have food, shelter, and clothing maybe. But I don't overspend. I don't spend a lot of myself. I do like my edibles. I admit that because they help medically. But I do not buy things for myself. I don't make big purchases. Don't believe, I want to go out and buy, big toys like, jet skis or anything like that. I'm not a materialistic person. I don't need a big home. I don't need a fancy car. I don't care about any of that. What I care about, do I have good food to eat? Which I do. We do eat well when we want to. I cook, okay. And, do we have a place to live? That to me is all I need for my life. I am very, very much a minimalist. I really am. And this is why when people say, Steve's grifting,
Nice.
for what? For what? What do I spend money on? What could I possibly grift? For what?
Right.
For food, shelter? That's grifting? I guarantee it. I everything I own fits into a very small space because I keep it that way. When I sold my house, I got rid of so much stuff because I realized I don't need this. I really don't need it.
Good.
So.
That good internet is what is
Oh,
what,
internet.
what you're
I need
hogging
internet. Yeah, I definitely need
from
internet.
everybody else.
Yeah, that is a necessity. That's like food. Yeah.
He's gonna have like 15 monitors, multiple microphones, all acoustic foam.
Yeah, I do have
It doesn't
two
work on the
monitors. I do have
tablet.
two.
You got to get on the laptop. It doesn't work on the
I
laptop.
have laptop.
You
Yeah.
got to get on the.
I do have two monitors and a laptop. That's actually how I stream. But I don't have the acoustic. But yeah, I do have. When I stream, dude, there's a lot going on. So I got my laptop that has the YouTube channel. I have the main screen that has everything else I want to do. Then I have my chat, and then I have the Twitter. So yes, it's a production. But yes, I do got to go. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for the kind words. Please leave me a comment in the comment section. And I really do thank everybody out there that have been just decent people. Maintain it. That's how we're going to get it ahead in life. That is how we win in life. Be kind to people. Don't be a shitty person. That's a simple, the golden rule. If you want to talk morality, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And I'll leave you guys with that. So I'm out of here, guys. Good night. Thank you, Silence, Justin, Red, and I will see you guys later. Good night.
Good night.